Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
I never really thought about tools until I bought a house in the suburbs. It's like this weird homeowner test if I need a tool for a project and don't have it. And my neighbor Ted loves to give me that look when I ask to borrow a pole saw. A year ago, I didn't even know pole saws existed. And now I gotta borrow one from Ted? What is happening?
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company coverage provided in service by affiliates and third-party insurers.
They say money can't buy happiness, but yes, it does. If you find $5 on the sidewalk, you're pretty happy. Now imagine that happening all the time. With the Upside app, you find cash in places you never expected. Restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, all the places you go. There's cash back waiting for you to find it. Will Upside solve all your problems? We can't promise that. But it will give you a little something extra so you can treat yourself. And there's nothing like a few unexpected bucks to brighten your day. That's life on the Upside. Download it today. Get the free Upside app and use promo code GoodLife10 for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code GOODLIFE10 for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Start living life on the Upside with the free Upside app.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
G'day world, this is the Sniper of the Skies, Robbie Eagles, and you are listening to Keeping It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Chris Samsa. On today's show, we'll discuss Keji Muto's retirement show, Fantastica Mania, New Japan Cup, and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW-EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com. Frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit NJPWEXT.us today for details. Josh, Chris, we're not going to pretend like we just did not talk off the air. We got a lot of stuff to cover here in this 3-hour window here. So I say let's jump into it. Let's give the people, world-class audio. Christian,
power 3 hours. Let's go. If I had a microphone on, you would have heard that twice.
The only thing I will say is this is going to be a much less disgusting episode. Maybe not for the listener, but Jeremy had to sit through me literally leaking from every single hole in my face while we did the show last week. So it's going to be a lot more sanitary this week.
Well,
by the way, I wasn't sick. I just had really bad allergies.
Is this like a Lanza gimmick? You don't get sick?
That's kind of like being sick.
It felt like sick, but then you wake up a couple hours later and you're totally better. So it was just allergies. I thought I had a flu or something. I was fine.
All right, Joe.
I don't listen to them enough to know this bit.
Yeah,
the bit is that
sick.
Joe Lanza has never had the flu, and that just can't.
I get sick all the time. So I try my best with vitamins and working out and sun, but
I legitimately don't get sick like ever.
Oh, okay.
Like, well, listen, I've got a strict regimen of vitamins and hydration and rest.
Got that strong style immune system.
That's it. Yep. It's a little Ishii inside of me.
The healthiest Chris there ever was.
Well, let's jump into our topics here because we got a lot to cover here. So first, we're going to talk about the Keji Muto Grand Final Pro Wrestling Last Love Holdout Show. We're only going to talk about the big New Japan matches that happened on the card. This was last week, February 21st, in the Tokyo Dome. Huge crowd for this show. First matchup we're going to talk about here was the junior matchup between Hiromu Takahashi and Amakusa. 11 minutes into.
Before we jump into that, I just want to make mention of the tag match that happened before this. Obviously, I'm not like the biggest Nosawa Run guy like expert there ever was, but it's his final match, and I thought that they had a pretty effective, short, and inoffensive, retirement match that was pretty, you could tell, emotional for all the guys involved, which I thought was pretty good.
Nice. I skipped that one and went straight to this match.
They basically got to a point where like Nosawa Run guy like he was done fighting. Like they could have kept going, but he realized like this is his last match. He's gonna go on a shield, and he pretty much just like offered himself up to sort of very similar to the I love you, I'm sorry moment. Mm-hmm. And he stood there kneeled with his arms wide out, waiting for Ishimori to kind of put him out of his misery, and told his partner not to interfere, and then just ate the bloody cross and 1, 2, 3. And very emotional. I think all those guys that were involved in that match are friends, him, Gato, and Ishimori, and Masada, and all that. So
nice. So yeah, then after that was the junior matchup here with Hiromu Takahashi defeating Amakusa 11 minutes and 2 seconds. Both men, junior champions. Obviously, Hiromu, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, and Amakusa, the GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion. What do you guys think about this one?
It was good. It was a little short, I think. I don't know. Everything on this card, aside from the main event, was relatively short, pretty breezy. I kind of expected this to go 15, 16, and then maybe Okada, Kiyomiya to go 20. But
right.
It was good. I mean, it's what you could expect from two guys that are kind of at the top of their game right now. Hiromu's got a lot going on. He's got the junior festival coming up, and Amakusa's involved in that too. So there is a little bit of a carryover, and we're going to continue some of these relationships. But nothing like mind blowing by any means, but cool to see these guys interact in a singles match for sure.
Yeah, I noticed that because they had such a short amount of time, they really cut out any sort of chain grappling or feeling out process. They pretty much just went balls to the wall from the very get-go. Mm-hmm. And I would wager to say this might be the fastest paced match we've seen Hiromu do in years. Not to say it's the best match he's had recently, but because he's had some better ones, but this was very, very high paced. Him and Amakusa apparently when they were teenagers, like traveled and roomed together, like in England, apparently, I believe, if that's correct. I was listening to a podcast, and they've got long ties to one another and have been angling to work together for quite a while. And you could really tell they had a lot of chemistry here. I think if this match had been given more time, it could have been much better because they were trending to have like a classic type match. But they didn't quite get there. 11 minutes, it's hard to really get to that upper tier. But again, the night was about Muto anyways. But I can't wait to see these two guys get in the ring together again, because I think that there might be an argument that Amakusa's the premier high-flying junior in all of like Puro right now.
Yeah, he is awesome. Yeah, I was more impressed with him in this match than I was with Hiromu. Not Hiromu did anything, bad or sucked or anything, but to me, Amakusa just kind of jumped out of the page. Like, he really grabbed his opportunity. And yeah, he showed out. His moves are just so dynamic, and he's just so fast. And some of the cool high-flying dives he does. Like, I don't even know how to describe, like, some of the dives that he does. Like, he does, like, these crazy, like, almost like a mix of, like, suicide dives into Fosbury flops, and he's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know what to call that middle rope spinning back dive that he does, but he busts that out here with very little space, and luckily Hiromu's an incredible base, and they just went plowing into the barricade. But match was really good. Also, Hiromu came out sporting a mask that was one of Amakusa's previous characters from, so sort of alluding to their past with one another and, everything like that. So a little bit of a backstory here, and then hit him with the time bomb, and the time bomb 2 got him out of there. After the match, they kind of shook hands, but it felt like this was definitely unfinished business, and they'll probably work together at some point down the road again.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I went 4 stars, I think 4.25 on this matchup, which was really fun for the 11 minutes it had.
Yeah, I would probably go like maybe 4, 3 3/4, 4, something like that.
Then after that, we had the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, defeating Kaito Kiyomiya 16 minutes and 32 seconds.
This rocked.
Yeah.
Like, grumpy, angry Okada is the best Okada. I did not expect this to be how this match went, but Okada the whole time, the story didn't change, right? It's not like he got to the dome and his music played and he was like, you know what? I'm going to give this guy like a match, right? And I'm going to let him think he can win. Like, at no point did anyone think Kiyomiya was going to like pull this one out once they got to the ring. So it was very fun. It was right in line with how Okada had treated Kiyomiya in the build-up. So, I mean, they just continued carrying on the story, which, of course you get a little worried about that. Like, they're just trying to build intrigue that like Okada's just going to show up and they're going to have an Okada match. Right. But this didn't feel like that. So this was one of Okada's shortest like singles matches in a long time. And definitely, I mean, it's just one of his shortest in the dome too. I mean, right up there with the Jay White match from what year was that? 2018?
Yeah.
So like
up there with the Yoshihashi match too.
Well, the 4-minute Yoshihashi match. I mean, I obviously went into the Tokyo Dome spreadsheet and pulled all that together. But yeah, I mean, Black Trunks, kind of douchebag Okada. I'm all in on it. If we can get there in the New Japan side of things too, that could be a really fun run. Depending on what kind of direction he takes going forward.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I was advocating that Okada turn heel. I think I was a little outlandish in saying it would take or, occur during the Jay White match at Wrestle Kingdom, which was a little far-fetched. But if you recall, back then I was saying he needed to step into like a Jumbo Saruta type role, and that would open up a lot more doors. And it's not quite there yet, but I mean, this is a little bit of a teaser of what could be if they decided to embrace this persona for Okada in New Japan, because this was really awesome. And I loved the match. I think the beginning of it was very hard hitting from both guys, a lot of stiffness, and kind of harkening back to what occurred at Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 between these two guys. And then, the middle portion of the match, Okada kind of got into a rhythm of just busting out his, signature stuff, and almost looked like he was going to steamroll Kiyomiya. And suddenly Kiyomiya wasn't having it anymore, and he just went on a tirade and literally like caught Okada off guard and was hitting with all of his offense. And say what you will, I know some people complained about the ending of this match and the way it finished, but he gave a lot to Kiyomiya and a lot of opportunity to shine. And, he lost strike exchanges to Kiyomiya. Kiyomiya speeded him and hit him with a lot of big offense. And there was a couple very believable near falls. once Okada realized he was a little bit in trouble, he took things a bit more seriously, hit him with the drop kick, and that's where we got the closing sequence, and they had some really fantastic, closing finish, type reversals back and forth. But ultimately, when it really came down to it, he was able to catch the kid with a drop kick, and then the, landslide, hit him with the Rainmaker. Looked like he was going to put him out, and picked him up for the 1-2, not so fast. And I think part of what was happening there was that up to this moment, the match was not a squash. The match was actually very competitive, and he got pushed a little bit more than I think he anticipated, speaking of Okada. And so he needed to put an emphatic exclamation point on the match to show that he really wasn't as troubled as maybe it appeared. And that's where he hit him with the Cobra Flosion and, another landslide, and then hit him again with a Rainmaker to kind of just show, hey, the kid's not on my level at this point. I think for everybody that was upset about this match, number one, the match was fantastic, and give me a 16-minute Okada match any day of the week. I loved this pacing, but ultimately, I think they're going to do business again. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I don't know when it's going to take place, but with all the business ties between these groups, between Bushi Road and Abima and, freaking cyber agent and everything like that, I think the door's wide open for them to continue to do business once again. And I think we are seeing the genesis of a story where this kid is going to get Okada at some point, just maybe not in this moment. And I understand that some people were upset because they're like, it's the GHC champion losing so cleanly to the IWGP champion. But just in kayfabe, if you really think about it, I mean, Mizawa, when he was coming up against like Jumbo, there was no denying that he wasn't on Jumbo's level. He was the young upstart chasing Jumbo. This feels a lot like Mizawa chasing Jumbo to some extent in my mind. So I like the match. I'm like, I don't know, 4.25 on it. That was very, very, very good.
Isn't that what everyone said about Kiyomiya and Muto too, though?
The only difference I would say with this is Muto didn't seem to be very giving in the Kiyomiya situation. That seemed to be mostly about Muto than anything else. And again, I'm not an avid Noah watcher. I think if you're not you, Chris, but hypothetically, if your complaint is this is a rehash of what they did, it's like, well, I mean, the New Japan side's just doing the best that they can do given the situation. Obviously, like Okada being a, top of the industry 10-year vet is not going to put over Kiyomiya clean in the dome. But I think that they did the best that they possibly could in this situation. And it does, to me, feel like if and when Kiyomiya does beat him, it's actually going to be something substantial, not just just this kind of half loss sort of thing that Muto did against him.
Yeah, I thought this match was awesome. Like the 4.5 star range here. We got final, big bad boss Kazuchika Okada here, and it kind of felt like the beat the streak mode in the WWE 2K games. Like you think it's sweet, you're getting your offense in on Taker, and then out of nowhere that flurry comes. You get the choke slam, you get the tombstone, he puts you out of there. And that's kind of what happened here. Like you mentioned, yeah, it was somewhat competitive. Kiyomiya got a lot of great offense. He did that great senton over the barricade, great German suplex, tiger suplex. He was working over the arm, the Rainmaker arm, and getting a lot of great offense in. But then, that flip switched, and like you mentioned, that final combo Okada does with that spinning, Emerald Flosion, the landslide, tombstone driver, like he just
all of it,
just bam, bam, one after another, and just laid Kiyomiya out. And then just that icing on the cake, lifting him up after the 2 count and hitting him with one more Rainmaker to kind of put that exclamation point, like, yeah, I beat you.
I guess my only question is, for the last couple of years, nobody's been kicking out of the Rainmaker. They've sort of reestablished it as a definitive finisher. What would have been worse if he just would have, hit that quasi comeback, hit him with the tombstone and the landslide, and then Rainmaker 1, 2, 3? Would that have felt cheaper or better than what they ended up doing, where he lifted him up and kind of saved him from getting beat by the first one and kind of, lengthened it out a little bit. I don't know which is worse for argument's sake.
I don't know, picking him up from something that it didn't look like he was going to kick out of.
Right.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough. I mean, like, I hope it goes somewhere. I love the 16 minutes we got, and I like the interactions, but I don't know. You don't see, I mean, that's like a Jay White level heel move, and then, I guess I think the intention was to create this like false sense of security that maybe now Kiyomiya, like Okada got cocky, maybe Kiyomiya, but he just slapped him with another Rainmaker and killed him.
That's what I was thinking when I was watching it too. I was like, oh, maybe, no.
At least another sequence, but no, it was like another Rainmaker and done.
Yeah.
But that really establishes Okada as enemy number one when it comes to the Noah fan base at this point.
Yeah, and if they ever do like another crossover show, Okada's definitely going to be like a top heel for the Noah fans. And I felt like, it's really kind of established Okada and New Japan as ultimately as where they are in the pecking order as the top, company in Japan. And, we talked about it a little bit last week, but, New Japan has nothing to gain by allowing Noah to beat their world heavyweight champion or their junior heavyweight champion. This is kind of almost a big favor for Noah to have these, top New Japan guys on this card. Also a favor to Muto for his big retirement show. So, they're getting the rub by facing these top stars. And then Kiyomiya definitely got the rub here, with this, great matchup with Okada. But I think, it's really kind of sent it home that, yes, New Japan, they're the top. Our world champion is the man, and your world champion is not going to beat our world champion.
Oh, and my bad. I thought we were moving on to the next topic. I realized we have a few questions here.
Yeah, so a few questions. Reddit user OKOK890 says, do you think we'll get any more Okada and Kiyomiya stuff, or was this the end?
I mean, you got to figure they're hoping to do more. I don't know that Noah would have Kiyomiya take the loss that way if they didn't have some sort of sketched out future with these two guys. But that said, different company, right? Like anything can happen. This Noah New Japan thing seems to be working for both companies, but Noah's got some work to do to keep up and to keep themselves kind of in that upper echelon, right?
Yeah.
They got to sell some tickets that don't revolve around Keiji Muto.
Yeah.
Well, the good news, they're doing some pretty exciting things between themselves and All Japan moving forward, and it seems like there might be the possibility that New Japan realizes that that they might be in hot water after they lose Muto, so maybe that's why they're sort of helping them out a little bit. So I'm optimistic to think we're going to see them work together at some point. I don't know if it's going to be at like, say, the G1 or anything like that necessarily, but that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely hoping that they do work together again. I think G1 would probably be the best case scenario, because then obviously you have those guys in the same block. It's a non-title match up again, and it's a situation where we've seen Okada lose to several people in the G1, and it's a good opportunity where it's, just for 2 points. It's not for a title. It's not a big, cross-promotional show, and it's something that could lead to a third match where then Okada could get the win back again.
I think that this could be a potential Dome headliner at some point. So that's why I'm optimistic about it.
Okay, 890 also asked, do you think Okada being a dick is the way to go for him against the returning Young Lions once they eventually wrestle him?
You got to figure, well, so Yu Uemura, his last match was against Okada, his last match before Excursion. So you kind of have to figure that there's going to be some sort of story when he comes back. So like, he's the guy to watch. I guess the other Young Lions don't necessarily have much, primary story with Okada. So I think we have to wait for Yuya to come back before we see kind of what that looks like. But I mean, I can't imagine why not, especially if those guys come back and they're over, right? Tsuji, Uemura, etc. Like if the crowd is into them and they look like they're going to be kind of the hot new thing, I mean, what's stopping them from, catapulting them into something with Okada, especially given the backstory and how similar the backstory is to Okada and Tanahashi. So, generationally, we keep waiting for them to do another, a re-up of the Rainmaker shock. I don't know if you can swing it, and I don't know that Okada's in a place that that it would be all that shocking if someone came back and did that. But something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, Dickhead Okada is definitely the way to go for returning. I mean, anyone who returns is a hot baby face for a minute, unless they come out with some sort of big angle. So definitely an option that would work.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was advocating for in December of last year for the Okada character. I just think it's the natural trajectory. I know it's a little bit more of like an all Japan style, booking pattern. But I mean, if you look at New Japan's aces over the course of their company's history, they've only really had 2 guys that have ever sat as that ultimate final unbeatable big boss sort of scenario. And that's really going to be either Inoki or Shinya Hashimoto. Everyone else they've had dominant top aces, but not guys that were like, this is an insurmountable challenge. And that's where we're starting to get with Okada. It's starting to feel that way a bit. And I think that there's just so much more narrative that you can spin when the veterans are kind of facing this new ascended iteration of him. And the Lions also have this cranky, grumpy veteran, kind of like demigod in Okada to beat. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, like you mentioned, like definitely the right next step for Okada's career. And we had a similar question too here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Will Dickhead Okada be great in the Jumbo Ceruto role when the next generation tries to take a spot? And I think that's a perfect thing for Okada. You have all these young guys, Umino and Narita and Yu Uemura and Yota Tsuji, all these guys coming back and trying to claim their spot and become the top stars. And you just have Okada, who's like not ready to give it up. He's still in the prime of his career. Just having him just be this ultimate, just like dickhead final boss, like crushing these guys, and it creates a new narrative. Like, these guys are all striving to try and beat this final boss in Okada that nobody can topple.
I mean, we're talking about Okada like he's old. I mean,
right.
I'm pretty sure the man is younger than me, and I don't feel like I'm old. So maybe I am, but I mean, I could see this being a cool kind of segment of his career, and then he can, bounce back to doing whatever he's going to do. So he's got a lot of runway ahead of him.
Yeah.
So why not have a run as a heel,
I think part of the issue is he has never really excelled as a underdog sort of, baby face. I think the times where he's had setbacks and he's needed to rebound from it's sort of been the more boring periods of his career. Whereas like Tanahashi can facilitate, when Tanahashi's had setbacks, he's stepped into an underdog, rebuilding himself role seamlessly. It's been some of the better stuff he's ever done. I just don't think Okada is great when that happens. I think him being the man at the top of the mountain is better.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's just so great. It's hard to kind of, want to root for him or like kind of buy into him being an underdog when you know how great he is and like just how of a phenomenal athlete, a professional wrestler he is. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get sympathy for him just seeing how great he is. Next question, we kind of already touched this. Down Homie 101, will there be a second chapter between Okada and Kiyomiya, or is it the end? We talked about that. Rambo and Slam Pig says, do you think we'll see another Okada versus Kiyomiya match this year? Given how Okada won the match, Kiyomiya would theoretically want a chance to get some revenge. If it happens, would you expect a more evenly matched second contest? What kind of stage would make sense?
Yeah, I think the next match that they do, Kiyomiya would have to be stronger, right? Maybe even if he doesn't win, he's got to look a lot better, right? To keep himself in the conversation. I think a G1 run for Kiyomiya would be amazing. I think that'd be really fun. And obviously everyone loves outsiders in the G1, right? So I think, everything I've seen this year from New Japan is about kind of like right sizing everything after going kind of haywire last year, right? We had a 48-person New Japan Cup last year, and we had, it sounds wild, but that's true.
No, we did.
And we had the 4-block G1 and everything. And I think everything's kind of coming back to being the correct size. As I start to think about G1, because my brain is going into tournament mode here, there's going to be some guys who don't get, who aren't in it probably. And I think there might be some interesting guys that are in it. And you got to figure this Kiyomiya thing's got to go somewhere. But, I hate to be the see how it plays out guy, but that's kind of where we're at.
My only hesitation for Kiyomiya being in the G1 is it feels a little bit sometimes like when someone beats Okada in the G1, they have that asterisk next to it. It's like it was a G1 match. And I don't know if that's going to be satisfactory enough to really elevate him after the fact. I personally would like to see him come out at some point. And I don't know how exactly you book this, but I'd like to see him run up on Okada again, like he did at WrestleMania Night 2, and kick this man in the head again. And then we're off to the races, boys and girls. Like, I want to see him run it with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It worked once.
Yeah. Do it again.
May as well. I'm for it.
Yeah, I think the G1 would be a great stage for the second match and to get Kiyomiya that win over him. I know, like you were saying, Josh, it's kind of like the asterisk, kind of like it was a win, but was it really like a win? But I think as long as Kiyomiya is with Noah, they're gonna have to get their wins the way they can, and so I think G1 would be a good stage for him to get the second match, get the win there, and then we complain about these New Japan versus Noah shows not having a big singles main event. Well, I think with Kiyomiya getting the win over Okada in G1, maybe for Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 next year, if they do it New Japan versus Noah again, you could do Kiyomiya versus Okada for the main event of that show in Yokohama Arena instead of a multi-man tag or some kind of tag team match. So moving on to the next matchup on the show, we had Tetsuya Naito defeating Keji Muto 28 minutes, 58 seconds in Keji Muto's last match, or I guess technically one of his last matches on this show.
Quote, their last is in quotes for the whole thing. So who knows?
I guess I'll start. So I loved this match. I think that this is maybe not a match for everybody, but for me, it was something that was right up my alley. I think that this was probably a masterclass from Tetsuya Naito in optimizing and getting the most out of a severely broken down Keiji Muto that you possibly could at this stage. And very, very minimalistic. I mean, everything that they did in the beginning was mostly mat work, but it was mat work that was tied into the long storied career of Keiji Muto. Everything that they did had a purpose, it had a meaning, and it made logical sense for where it was going. And then from there, they really leaned into all the classic spots of Keiji Muto's career, as well as nods to their rivalry with one another, 11 years prior. So callbacks to their Tokyo Dome match. And then just other stuff too, like the callback to Hashimoto when Muto gave him the DDT and pointed up to the sky, and the people started chanting Hashimoto, which was really an awesome moment. And I mean, you hear that kind of thrown around a lot, especially by quote unquote WWE fans, that they're it's about moments, it's about stories. Well, this match really was about moments and stories and emotion. And there were two instances where Keiji Muto went to the top rope and, had the perfect setup to do his moonsault, but both times he just couldn't pull the trigger because he's too broken down. He'll probably break a knee or blow out his body if he attempts to do it. And it's if he had been younger, in the past, he might have been able to get the win tonight, but he just he was too slow on the trigger. He couldn't get it done. And I loved when Naito did the Great Muta thing where he ran down the ramp and then came back and gave him the basement drop kick. All that stuff was really, really, really good. And then, ultimately all of the dragon screws and shining wizards that Muto was able to get off, they weren't enough to put away Keiji Muto, to put away Naito. He did somehow split Naito open. Both guys had a little bit of blood at different points in the match. And ultimately, everything that he was able to dole out was not enough to put away Naito, and Naito gets the Destino, the 1, 2, 3. Very emotional match. Very, very good. I think the crowd too really elevated this, much in the same way that The Rock and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. You watch that match with the sound off, you're not going to like it that much, but when you watch it with the sound on, it's one of the greatest matches of all time. This kind of sits and fits into a similar category. Was it the most dynamic thing you've ever seen? Was it Omega Ospreay from Wrestle Kingdom this year? No. But it's probably the best outing that Muto's had since, I know people really liked a few of those matches he had in Noah, but I felt like this is better than almost all of that. I'm like 4.25 plus, maybe 4.5. I just thought it was like an excellent pro wrestling match.
It was just, the entrances were a spectacle. The match was kind of a spectacle, but you're right. Like, I think you nailed it. Like, this match was not necessarily about like the physicality. It was about the storytelling and, this kind of broken down old man fighting Keji Muto. I was waiting for it. Took a second there.
I thought you just messed up the names and then I realized what you did.
No, but like there's a lot of parallels to the way people see both these guys and eventually somewhere down the line Tetsuya Naito might be in that Muto space, right? So, but there was no better stage for this than the Tokyo Dome. There's no better opponent for Muto's, I guess last real match than Tetsuya Naito. I think that the booking was really well done, and honestly, like the match was pretty good. For what it was pretty good. It was better than Ric Flair's last match. Mm-hmm. So if that's the barometer,
better than the Nakamura match that he had the other month.
Yeah, I think they both hit the same kind of mark for me, where it was mostly spectacle, more physical than I anticipated, things like that. And I think that that's all you can ask for as someone's going out. Someone like Muto's going out is like, give us everything you got on the way out. And honestly, like as much grief as he takes in some circles, he did, right? He gave everything he could. His, he was broken down. He was getting wheeled around by Darby Allin, and he still came out and had, a 28-minute match. And that's all you can ask for. And my God, the Tokyo Dome looked so good and so full. And like, it really, really did feel grandiose. And I think that's
production wise, it was WrestleMania level.
I know there's a question about the production coming up, but my goodness, if I could watch big Noah shows all day because they look good. They feel big. They're well presented. I think there's something there, and I wish they could get to the point where they could really leverage that. But, for a little while now, they've been kind of shooting themselves in the foot with the booking and the shooters and all that. But I'm really curious to see where Noah goes from here. And I know I probably said the same thing on the same show last year after around Wrestle Kingdom Night 3 last year, whatever, the Yokohama Noah show. But like, I think now they've got a clear runway for what they're trying to accomplish. And I really do hope that, I hope Noah becomes a really established number 2 because the presentation's so good.
Yeah, the production was awesome. That Tokyo Dome stage looked great. And then just everything with that production just played to this match as well. All the tributes they did to Muto, all his theme songs that they played, like the video package. And
that was so cool.
You talk about the story. Also, there's a story there with him and Naito where, the recommended match of the week last week when they wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom. And Naito, wanting to be so much like Muto. That was one of his heroes, somebody he aspired to be. And, Muto beat him that night. So, it was kind of a full circle moment for Naito. Another chance to beat his hero in the Tokyo Dome in this, big main event matchup here. And he got the opportunity. He was able to check it off the bucket list and beating Muto in the Tokyo Dome. And like you're saying, Josh, such a good, tribute to some of the other, New Japan legends like Hashimoto, some Chono, the STF. Like, there's a lot of great.
He did the Emerald Flosion.
Yeah, Emerald Frozen. So he's doing a lot of great moves from people from a lot of his great rivals and matches, and so seeing that all play out there, and then using his the Shining Wizard, which he's been using lately because he couldn't really do the moonsault, and so there's so much going on. And Naito, like the crowd was so against him; they were booing anytime Naito was in control. He had him in that figure four, not the figure four, that full Nelson leg lock that he does, and the crowd's just booing, wanting Muto to get out, and they were fully behind Muto all the way. Like I said, ultimately, it was the Destino that puts Muto away, and Naito gets to win. After the match, Muto gives Naito the props. He doesn't, run away. He shakes, Naito's hand, gives him the fist bump. And
kinda, he shook his fist. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like, he had the fist, and he, touched the fist, and then he went to shake, Naito's hand, but Naito's hand was still in the fist, so he just, He just like shook his fist like he was a toddler. It was weird.
We've all been there, okay? Someone goes for a fist bump, you're going for a handshake. Sometimes you just got to sell it, okay?
Then after the match, Muto gets on the mic. He's cutting a promo, and he calls out Chono, who's sitting on commentary for this matchup. Asks him to come in because Chono never got a real retirement matchup, and so he calls him out to the ring. Says he needs a referee. Tiger Tori sitting there by ringside, calls him to the ring, and then they have this 1 minute and 37-second match. Quick lockup. Chono hits him with a Shining Wizard, puts him in the STF, taps him out. So Muto's official last match here, losing to Chono, and the crowd ate it up. Big Chono chants. They loved that moment. So it was a cool moment there for Chono, and a cool little way for both of them to go out.
Maybe that's why last was in quotes.
I think I do think that's why last was in quotes. Although conspiracy theorists are going to say it's because it's not really his last match, even still, and he's going to continue on.
He's got to come wrestle at WrestleMania so he can go into the WWE Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
Well, people have gone into that Hall of Fame without wrestling for them, so who knows?
But he wants a paycheck, though.
Yeah, get the paycheck. I saw a lot of people, especially like New Japan fans, being like, "Oh, they kind of screwed over Naito a little bit, not letting him be the final match." But I thought that this really was awesome. To kind of, because all those guys that passed away, like Hashimoto and Mizawa, and they were never able to have retirement matches. And Chono never had one, and this is truly the end of the Showa era of wrestling. To see those two guys go out there and just have a fun little, whatever kerfluffle match and send the fans home happy and share the ring once again together, and you kind of think back their whole history with each other. It was pretty awesome. So I thought it was great. I really liked it. And that was a great way to end a career. This is one of the best retirements of all time.
Yeah. Series of question here from Dom Homie 101. He says, did anyone else pop when Keiji Muto called out Chono for a match?
Of course. I mean, it was just cool. It was fun.
Yeah. The crowd definitely popped, but where the real pop came in, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Chono for years never takes his glasses off. He only ever took them off when he wrestled, and he's always keeping them on on commentary. And when he took them off to let the people know I'm serious, the crowd was oh
yeah, he threw the walking stick down, put the glasses away. Yeah,
it was cool.
Cool moment. He also asked, which Tokyo Dome show was better, Wrestle Kingdom 17 or Keiji Muto's retirement show?
I didn't watch this whole show, so I couldn't tell you. I will tell you this, though, from a presentation standpoint, it's the Noah show without a doubt. But I would probably, just looking at people's reactions and scores, I would wager to guess that the Wrestle Kingdom show was the better show top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wrestle Kingdom 17 was a really fantastic. It was a fantastic card, and it was a pretty nice kind of rebirth of New Japan too. So, I mean, I did watch this whole show, and it was good. I mean, it was really enjoyable the whole time, but it wasn't at that level until you got to the retirement match, really. Maybe the Okada Kiyomiya match. I mean, it did feel big, but it didn't feel humongous.
It didn't have the big fight feel.
Huh?
It didn't have the big fight feel.
I mean, but once Muto and Naito started to come out, I mean, that's where they clearly put all their eggs in that basket in the sense of presenting those guys as a main event. And that in itself is, I mean, it's something that not everyone can do. And even New Japan doesn't quite get that right anymore. They don't, it's almost like New Japan knows that they're big enough that they don't have to make themselves look bigger. Whereas Noah very potentially knows that if they present themselves at a higher level, then people will perceive them to be at a higher level. And honestly, it freaking works.
It's working.
Yeah. So keep doing it, and it might get you somewhere.
I literally had a conversation with people in a group chat last week, and they thought I was being offensive in comparing Noah to comparatively speaking, putting New Japan in the same spot as a WWE, but in the East, and kind of comparing them to an Impact level show. And they're like, that's offensive. And I'm like, but the numbers show for the last almost 20 years that that's the case. And they literally thought I lost my mind, because when you go on Wrestle Universe and you see how great the production is, and you see what the production looks for these shows, that doesn't compute, like
Yeah.
Impact's not doing shows like this.
Oh man, but yeah, I agree. I think Wrestle Kingdom 17 was a better show. I also didn't see the full Muto show. I just saw these big matches that we covered here, but yeah, just based off of, like you're saying, the match quality and kind of the general perception of things, yeah, I would say Wrestle Kingdom 17 was definitely overall the better show. Also ask overall thought on the Keji Muto's retirement show, thoughts on the overall card, or is your match of the night? Which wrestler stood out the most? Will we get another Japan Super Show in the near future?
I mean, I would like to see another Japan Super Show that's not just New Japan and Noah. Like, let's get some other. I mean, obviously the relationship's good with All Japan these days, and they're no threat, really, right? I mean, like they're kind of a big indie with some history now. But I would like to see like a big major festival kind of thing, and everyone kind of drops it every now and then. Okada is always talking about getting everyone together and doing something, almost like Hiromu's junior thing, but for heavyweights or just for everybody. You throw in some Stardom and some Tokyo Joshi Pro, and you've got all sorts of stuff that you can do. So, I mean, do I think that'll actually happen? Probably not. Right? Like that seems like it's pretty far-fetched, and I don't really know how they would get to it at this point. But my match of the night was Okada and Kiyomiya. I thought that was really great. But the Noah group looked good, and I like, I think the more we see kind of the current and younger Noah guys, the more I think we're going to really get to know what's happening on that side of things. And I do hope this relationship with New Japan continues, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think that Okada Kiyomiya was match of the night for me also, and yeah, I would love for them to do some kind of bigger, Japan Super Show once again, like you're saying, with more promotions involved. I think there's definitely room in the calendar, and I think with relationships between the companies right now, I think everybody's kind of focused on just kind of rebuilding the Japanese wrestling landscape after COVID. We're getting cheering fans back. People are allowed to have more people in these venues. We're seeing, this show, Muto show, big Tokyo Dome crowd, bigger than Wrestle Kingdom 17. So we're getting to a point now, we're getting bigger crowds as the months go on, and COVID's kind of in the back door for Japan. So I think, now's a great time to, if you want to continue to revitalize Puroresu and get people excited about wrestling as a whole in Japan, do a great big super show and have all these big promotions involved, all the heavyweights, junior, the women. It could be a really great thing.
Yeah, I'm not going to add too much more to that. Just I did think Amakusa really stood out and had a great showing for himself from what I saw. I do think the main event was the match of the night for me. I liked it more than Kiyomiya and Okada even. But they've been doing those cyber agent festivals, and those are almost like super shows as it stands already. So like you said, Chris, I would like to see New Japan involved in something down the road with these companies. We'll see.
He also asked, with the retirement of Keji Muto, does it feel like a end of an era? How would you guys define that era? Where does Keji Muto rank in that era?
Well, it literally is an era. They represent the Showa era of professional wrestling, which is, if you're not familiar, in Japan, they very often will culturally classify eras based on which ruler or which dynasty is, taking place. And so I'm not the full expert on all that, but the Showa era is the era that these guys kind of all inhabited from like the mid to late 80s, kind of peaking in the 90s and tapering off in the like 2010s. Stars such as Shinya Hashimoto, Keiji Muto, Nobuhiko Takada, I'm forgetting names. Jumbo, or I'm sorry, not Jumbo. Why do I always do this? Who are the All Japan guys? Who are the pillars? Kawada, Taue,
Kobashi.
Mizawa. I always can't remember Kobashi's name because I always like mix him up with Jumbo for some reason in my mind. I don't know why. But all of those guys kind of were the top stars during that era. And undoubtedly, Keji Muto is by far the most popular and most famous and most culturally relevant wrestler of that entire era. So much so, you could probably make the very credible argument that he's the biggest star of our lifetime when it comes to Japanese professional wrestling. You know, putting aside like an Inoki or a Ricky Dozan or a Jumbo, which kind of predate, most people listening who are like in the 30-ish, 40-ish range, that sort of thing. Muto's the biggest star of Japanese wrestling over that whole overarching period. He just is.
Yeah, so definitely, end of the era there.
I was gonna say, anytime one of these guys goes out, it's the end of an era, right? I mean, so that's the God's honest truth. I mean, I was having a discussion. I think I want to bring it here. Someone asked, who's the next Japanese wrestler who gets a Tokyo Dome retirement? And
Tanahashi.
I mean, it's Tanahashi, right? But
yeah,
does Tanahashi even? I mean, does he just go out at Wrestle Kingdom like Liger? Or
I don't think so.
Do you do your own Tokyo Dome show for Tanahashi? I mean, I guess the way Tanahashi's talking, it's 15, 16 years out. So
right,
yeah,
we'll see. But
I think
Noah, he's the only one left, right? I mean, he's definitely next in line, and I mean, beyond that, who knows what happens?
Yeah, I think Noah got the blueprint for New Japan. I think New Japan could see, all right, they did this with Muto. Like, we can definitely do this with somebody like a Tanahashi. And yeah, I think with Tanahashi's influence on New Japan, saving him from the dark ages and just his cultural relevance, I definitely think that they could pull off a separate Tokyo Dome aside from Wrestle Kingdom for him.
Yeah, you look at the generations between the Musketeers and say Tanahashi, and you're not going to find a name, although they're all loved and well respected. They're not going to bust out a Tokyo Dome retirement for a Yuji Nagata or a Kojima or any of those guys from that era. Tenzan, or even like who's his counter, Suwama, from All Japan. Like, he was a big star at the same time as Tanahashi. He's not going to get one. Tanahashi's pretty much the only guy that's really ascended to that level of stardom. And truth be told, like, by the time Tanahashi was on top, yes, he brought along a boom and he did save the company, but the business that he did in his heyday pales in comparison to the business that New Japan was doing in the 80s and 90s. Business was down. I do think it will depend how long Tanahashi continues to wrestle, and it depends on what his standing with a big company like New Japan even will be at that point. I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that he'll probably still be working for the company and everything, but stranger things have happened. You never know. Like, what if he gets ousted for some reason? There's a management change or something crazy. You just never know. So even that's not a guarantee, although he likely should be the guy that should get it.
This last question here, we probably will need a whole episode on this last question, but he says, with the retirement of Keiji Muto, what will be his true lasting legacy in NJPW and all pro wrestling? What are some of your guys' favorite Muto matches of all time? And where does he rank among the greatest of all time?
I mean, I always go back to the 91 G1 match with Vader.
I love that match.
That match is awesome.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And I'm a G1 guy. I mean, you guys know this more than anyone. Like, G1 is my like favorite thing in pro wrestling. So just that match happened in that tournament, it's so good. So that's my recommendation. I think it was August 10th, 91, something like that. Awesome. Find it if you haven't.
It's I think that it's August 10th, 1991. Yeah.
Nailed it.
I mean, I think that Muto, like I said earlier, I think I kind of gave a brief summation of how big of a star he was, and he was the biggest shining star of his era. I think that those matches he had with Takada when they did the UWFI New Japan stuff, those are some of the biggest houses and gates in the history of wrestling. I think those will be pretty important. The matches he had teaming with and against Sting in the US and in Japan were very big deals. The stuff in 2001, when he was crossing between New Japan and All Japan, and he had those matches with like Tenryu and Nagata and everything like that, those are really fantastic, and they stand up a lot of them. The Chono final from the first G1 also is up there. Yeah. The match with Liger. I'm actually wearing the shirt from the Muta versus Liger, their one-time meeting in those personas, the famous Kishin Liger match. So there's a lot there.
What I'll say about Muto is a lot of his stuff, even from 20, 30 years ago, it stands up now. And I think that that's pretty cool. Pretty much everything that you mentioned, back to the early 2000s and even back into the 90s, like you watch it and it still feels present day, which is, I think a testament to Muto and his style. I mean, he definitely he's kind of the thread that tied it all together.
Huge trendsetter. I mean, he invented the Shining Wizard. Suddenly everybody in the indies was doing Shining Wizards. He brought back the Dragon Screw leg whip, which, Fujinami invented that move, but it became passe. And during that match with Takada in the Tokyo Dome, that's where he famously sort of brought it back. And suddenly, I mean, look at how many people in Puro still do that to this very day. The figure 4 leg lock, which was a move that, for better or for worse, as popular as someone like Ric Flair made it, it kind of just became like a rest hold and a move that people didn't actually win matches with. And then suddenly, when he beat Takada with it, it became one of the most feared finishing holds in all of Japanese wrestling. And it kind of stood the test of time for a very, very long period. So much so that they were doing believable near falls in this match with Naito based off of his history using that move. And the moonsault, very few people were doing that move. And he's one of the people that proliferated that. His style of doing the elbow drop. There's just so many things that he kind of innovated or brought to the table that tape traders and people that were watching his work, brought into their games. And it's still, felt to this day all throughout pro wrestling.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be up there as one of the, the greatest, puro wrestlers of all time. He's even the greatest wrestler of all time, just with his influence in Japan, even in America. Growing up as a kid, I always remember seeing him on WCW and just kind of that run there. You talk about some of the stuff with Sting, but just him showing up on Nitro with Sonny Ono and stuff that they were doing there. And the Green Mist, I think he's probably the first person I ever saw growing up watching wrestling that spat mist out. And I was like, oh, what is this? And it was so kind of cool. And also we've seen where that has extended throughout, Puro and Japanese wrestling with guys spitting mist and what that means. And so, yeah, I think he'll definitely have, this big lasting effect, this great legacy, and be remembered as one of the greatest of all times. Rainbow Sandpig said, after watching the Muto retirement show, I was struck by how much better the production looks on the Noah show versus NJPW in terms of cameras, lighting, and streaming quality. Is NJPW's failure to improve these issues holding back their worldwide expansion?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah, I definitely think that, we mentioned it earlier, but yeah, Bushiroad could definitely put some more funds into production, but they probably feel like they don't have to because they are the number one already.
I think that creatively, the New Japan production's really good. Like the camera work's still really good. And I think the Tokyo Dome looked really good for Wrestle Kingdom 17, which is kind of the most comparable to this Noah show. But man, that Noah stage looked incredible. And I mean, they've been clear that they're going to invest in different cameras and higher end streaming and Western style TV apps like Roku and Apple TV and things like that. And that makes the product more accessible, and anything that makes the product more accessible is good. Plus then if it looks as good as it does, when Noah's running the production, that's awesome too. And that's going to be a win for them. Right. Mm-hmm. While we're on kind of the production side of things, let's give props to Justin Nipper for getting your friend and mine for getting the nod to do commentary on this show. I mean,
I didn't know he did it. I watched the show in Japanese, so I wasn't actually aware that took place. So congrats to Justin. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So he, I don't want to share his story, but I got in touch with him shortly thereafter. I mean, we've been pals for a while. I know he's been on this show too. But he was there for the show, and he obviously has a, a working relationship with Noah. He does some work for them. But yeah, I guess a couple days before, while he was just kind of hanging out in Japan, they asked him to do commentary. So, and he did a pretty good job.
He's a talker.
He is a talker. But I could only imagine like getting the invitation to do your first commentary, and it's the freaking Tokyo Dome for Keji last match. Like, that's wild. I would absolutely do it, but I don't think I would. I mean, I don't think I would keep my composure. Right. So I mean, not like I would be like, really now? Like, now's the time? Like, can we do a Korakuen or something? Like, so. But I mean, good on him. Congrats to him. I don't know if that's going to be something that continues, but I mean, proud to see someone from our little circle here get a cool opportunity like that.
Yeah, that's dope. And the last question here, also kind of a joke, but also in line with production, from Bash, is what's with NJPW still using wired mics and Noah has the wireless mics? Is it because Taichi is it because Taichi's the only one that can have the wireless mic gimmick?
You nailed it.
Well, nothing good happens with wireless microphones, though, so I totally get them just cabling in, because I
don't trust wireless mics.
As an old touring musician, anything wireless was the most likely thing to fail. So and that might have been a little while ago, but honestly, when it comes down to it, sometimes you just got plugged in.
I don't have the prolific music career that Chris does, but I've played a lot of open mics, and when there's a wireless mic involved, it's hell. Like, I'm surprised that they haven't actually run into on-air issues with that yet.
Yeah.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs. You just bought a home in the suburbs, but no one told you about all the birds, specifically this one, who seems to be calling out Roy. Roy. But who exactly is Roy? And why doesn't he ever respond? Maybe Roy is just bird speak for save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto. I guess until Roy answers, we'll never know. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
All right, now we're going to shift focus over to Fantastica Mania. Yes, you gotta love the Fantastica Mania music. I was trying to find it without like any like words over it, so we can do like the hit the music kind of bit, but I couldn't find it without like the promo video.
Bro, we used to have it.
I know, but I can't find it anymore.
Oh man, that's not good.
But Fantastica Mania has been going on. If you guys haven't noticed or been knowing, I know a lot of people haven't been talking about it, but it's the annual tour where CMLL luchadors come over to New Japan. It's the first time since the pandemic that these guys have been able to come over and do the Fantastica Mania tour. There's been a series of shows over this past week. I don't think we're not going to go over each one, all the results.
This is what it is, Jeremy. It's the tour where the luchadors from CMLL come to Japan and tear the fucking house down every single night. That's what this tour is.
It's also been rumored that this is their best payday of the year.
It is apparently, yes. Yeah. Like, it's apparently one of their best paydays. They also sell like so much more merch than they typically would do back home. And I think it also really we've seen in the past that like pushes either get stopped or started based off this tour, both in Mexico as well as guys getting invitations to come back and work Japan down the road as well. So it's a pretty important tour, even if it doesn't play into the overall kayfabe of New Japan and CMLL.
Yeah. And we had a question here, I think it's good to kick us off, from OK890. Who has been your CMLL standout so far, and who would you want to see, if any, return for some tours this year?
And Jeremy, I've been wanting to do this because I never take notes, but I want to pull a little Dave here. Let me get my notes. Let me get my notes out. But I do have some notes here. And, Yeah, I think the guys that have really impressed me the most so far are pretty much most of the bigger names that we're pretty familiar with, people that are running at the top of the card in CML. It's like your Templarios, Teton, Atlantis Jr., Volador, Mystico, Soberano Jr. But for me, the standout, the guy that I like the most, and I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and it's been about 5 years since he's actually done one of these Fantastica Manias. I love me some Hechicero, the magician.
Nice. Yeah, for me, there's a lot of the newer people who are really impressing me. Captain Suicida, I thought he's been raw on this tour. Magia Blanca, who's Volador Jr.'s kind of apprentice and stablemate. He's been super fun to watch on this tour. Ray Cometa, another new guy on the tour this year who's been a ton of fun to watch. So obviously all the established guys that you mentioned, I think we already knew that they were great, but seeing some of these new guys come in and kill it have been it's been really fun to watch.
You forgot to mention Hijo del Villano 3.
Him not so much. He's been fun.
He's been okay.
Also,
But,
also I think it's pretty cool. Atlantis Jr. We saw kind of his progression, kind of taking over his father's mantle, and to see where he's at now, like he's a big star in Mexico, and he's gotten so much better from the last time we've seen him.
Well, when he first showed up on this tour, which was the last time they did the tour in 2020, he was just debuting under the gimmick of Atlantis Jr. That was he'd been wrestling, but he had been wrestling under that moniker. And now he's one of the top guys in the entire company. He's the NWA World Historic Light Heavyweight Champion, which he just won that title about a month ago from Stuka Jr. And he also holds a singles victory over Mystico in a tournament final. So they've really strapped a rocket to his back.
Yeah, from what I've been hearing, he's pretty much been undefeated in singles matches in Mexico, and if anybody beats him, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, what I kind of noticed was the first couple nights. So the first 2 nights, they were really running with this theme of having mixed matched teams, good guys and bad guys, people that wouldn't typically team together at the top of the card. They call that Revelos Increíbles. I looked it up to figure out how to pronounce that. I think that's how you do it. But that was the first 2 nights. That's kind of what was at the top of the card. And then nights 3 and 4, they did the faction tag team tournament. So in the past, we've seen the brothers tag team tournament or the family tag team tournament. Yeah. Well, they're not doing that anymore. Now they've apparently ever since they came CMLL, since they came back from the pandemic, they've really leaned more into a faction heavy sort of booking pattern similar to New Japan, which they didn't have so much of in the past. And so that kind of allowed them to do a little bit more of that here. So that's what we saw in the last 2 nights for the third and the fourth night. And then these final 2 nights, we're getting a lot more singles matches, title matches, and those big matches are taking place in Cork and Hall. So sort of felt like the first 4 nights were essentially road to level shows, leading up to these last 2 Cork and Hall shows with the Spanish commentary. And very similar to how CMLL books midweek for their shows. They have their midweek shows leading up to a big Arena Mexico Friday night show.
Yeah. So like you're mentioning, moving on to night 3 and 4, we had those big interfaction tag team tournament matchups. So, and those were semi-main and main event for those evenings. So on night 3, the semi-main event, we had the LIJ team of Bushi and Teton defeating the team of Dulce Gardenia and Ray Cometa, 12 minutes and 41 seconds. And I really dig Bushi and Teton as a team. I know we've been seeing their work now for a few months now since Teton has become a member of LIJ, but I think they work really well together. And real story of this match, Dulce Gardenia, he's what they call an exotico in Mexico. And he's always trying to flirt with the wrestlers and kiss the wrestlers. So he was really trying to put the moves on Bushi at the beginning part of this match. But the cool thing about Dulce Gardenia is even though he has that exotico gimmick, once he gets,
can go.
Yeah, he can go. The match starts off with kind of playing around and the flirting and the kissing, but once it's go time, he's out there flipping and doing all the cool moves as well. So that was kind of the beginning part of the story, and then eventually Bushi and Teton were kind of able to overcome the antics and kind of the skills of Gardenia and Kometa and get the win here.
Yeah, and shout out to Voices of Wrestling. They put out a preview via the Cubs fan. If you're not familiar with him, he runs the Lucha blog. Probably one of, if not the most knowledgeable Western fan when it comes to Lucha Libre. And he put out a really incredible preview via Voices of Wrestling that helped me a lot in my enjoyment and understanding of this. So he kind of mentioned how like Rey Kometa and Dolce Gardenia, like they're very, very popular and beloved in Mexico, but they're sort of like lower mid card. Like they're not like guys that win a lot, but they always have like the fans behind them. So not surprised to see them lose here to the LIJ team. I think it's really cool to kind of see, because it hasn't totally been apparent lately how Teton is truly one of the top guys in CMLL. But when you watch night after night how they've kind of booked him and positioned him, you kind of get more of a feel and an understanding that he is one of the top, champions and stars of this company. And he's been the world welterweight champion for close to, I think it's like almost 1,700 days. So, a long time.
Better than Roman. And then the main event was Los Guerreros de la Anteltida, Atlantis Jr. and Ultimo Guerrero teaming up to defeat Magia Blanca and Volador Jr. 13 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yeah, the interesting thing here, apparently last year there was a kind of hesitant quasi-unity between the Guerrero family and the Atlantis family, who typically are always at each other's throats and have been on opposite sides of the Rudos and Technico alignment for years and years and years. But for whatever reason, via the storylines that they're running in CMLL, they sort of had to form an uneasy alignment with alliance. And that sort of ended about 4 months ago. But I think the deal here is that like New Japan kind of booked this out months ago and didn't necessarily update what's going on the tour to reflect what's going on in Arena Mexico current today. Mm-hmm. So that's why they kind of ran with this Atlantis, teaming with Atlantis Jr. teaming with Ultimo Guerrero sort of deal, even though realistically they're not actually a team anymore in Mexico.
Yeah, and I think, also I don't know how much of the New Japan fan base is staying up with CMLL every week. Also, right. They know the stars, but maybe they're not following the storyline. So for them, I don't think it was that big of a deal to kind of run them here as a team. And they worked really...
Well, the bigger deal, though, is that Magia Blanca is sort of like the pin eater for Volador. Mm-hmm. And both those guys are on the quote-unquote Rudo side are like big stars. So it made all the sense in the world that like they're not losing on this night.
Right, especially, with what we talked about, the push that Atlantis Jr. has been getting, and Ultimo Guerrero, he's always one of the top, guys that comes to this tour. He's super over with the Japanese crowd. He's out there, raising the roof, has the whole, crowd raising the roof, and I think he's always been one of the highlights for me on these Fantastica Mania tours. A guy of his size, just the stuff he can do is really incredible, and his strength, the way he catches people out of dives and stuff, is
incredible
awesome.
Base.
Yeah, real great base. And just like those suplexes that he does off the top rope and the powerbomb off the top rope, really great stuff. But Magia Blanca, even though he's the pin eater for Volador, I thought he was pretty impressive in this match as well, and really enjoyed him and Volador teaming up together.
The next night there was
real quick. We had a question here from Des253. Thoughts of Atlantis Jr. coming back for Best of the Super Juniors?
I think he might be too big, to be honest with you. I mean, they could do that. I personally, based on what I'm seeing here, if I were to advocate for anybody to come back, it's going to be Soberano Jr.
Oh, yeah. Soberano has improved so much.
He's improved so much from the last time we saw him in New Japan. Like, so much. They need to bring him back for Super Juniors. He's the guy.
Yeah. So then night 4, there was the playoff match for third place in the tag team tournament. So we had Magia Blanca and Volador Jr. defeating Dulce Gardenia and Rey Kometa, 14 minutes and 23 seconds. And then
One thing I wanted to make mention of before that, earlier on the night, there was a match between Doki, Hechicero, and Templario taking on the team of Desperado, Mystico, and Soberano Jr. That's one of the best matches on this entire tour. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. Up to this point, it was the match of the tour. I'm 4.25 on it easily, and Doki picked up a win here, which shocked me.
Doki has been great on this tour, and they've actually been kind of telling this little story between Doki and Soberano Jr. And in the previous match, like Soberano Jr. hit that springboard, like moonsault thing to Doki and got the win. But here in this match, they did the same spot, but Doki countered the moonsault and was able to pin him.
Doki has also been doing, apparently, based on what I read, he's been doing some press over in Mexico, kind of building up this tour, and has been echoing a lot of the sentiments of sort of like the more hardcore indie lucha fans, kind of talking about how like CMLL is sort of like a sanitized, inauthentic version of the real lucha libre that he did when he was, fighting on the dirt floors and everything like that. And, he kind of has this beef that they don't really respect or represent the real lucha libre. So, and the one thing I will say, out of a lot of the New Japan guys that are represented on this tour, they're having fun, they're having good matches. He's the only one from New Japan that is going balls to the wall every night and taking the tour very seriously and like performing at the highest levels.
Yeah, like Naito and Hiromu have been on the tour, but for them it's been all kind of fun games. But yeah, Doki's out there. He's not going back. He respects the indie lucha style, but he's not going back to those indies in Mexico. And he's been showing out, having some great stuff here with Soberano Jr. There was a match earlier in the tour where him and actually, I'm talking about Desperado and Kanemaru had a face-off, but also Despy and Doki faced off too, now that they're no longer a part of Suzuki-gun. So the crowd was really into those interactions. Despy facing off against Kanemaru and Despy facing off against Doki as well. The interaction tournament, third place, Machia Blanca and Volder Jr. beat Dulce Gardenia and Rey Cometa. And then the finals of the tournament was Atlantis Jr. and Ultimo Guerrero defeating Bushi and Teton 16 minutes and 16 seconds. So Ultimo Guerrero and Atlantis Jr. are the winners of the interfaction tournament.
Most star-studded team in the tournament, so it makes a lot of sense. Have you also noticed how every night they're having Atlantis Jr. walk through the crowd and sign autographs, and they're really like playing up the fact that he is like the big to-do amongst like the fans, on these tours, the guy that everybody wants to get to know and meet, which I think has been a pretty cool presentation.
Yeah, and he's had like new gear each night too, and he just come off like a real big star.
Almost all the luchadors have had different gear each night. Like you could tell that they're pumped up for this tour more so than usual.
Yeah. So that brings us to night 5, which was the today's show, the 27th. From
Jeremy, I gotta tell you right now, show of the year contender. For New Japan. I'm not gonna blow it out of proportion how good this was and say it was better than it was, but I mean, this early in the year, it's February. This to me personally is probably the second best show behind Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, all these Fantastica Mania shows have been really easy to watch. They've all been like 2 hours to 2.5 hours, 6-7 matches per card. They've kind of breezed by. There's like a small intermission usually before the semi-main and main. You can skip that intermission and save some time. But these shows have all been easy to watch, especially like you mentioned. Today's show was awesome, and here's where we got some more of the the bigger singles matches. So on the show we had Ultimo Guerrero defeating Captain Suicida in the third match of the night, 10 minutes and 17 seconds.
I went 4.25 on that. I loved that match, and that's a match that had no build, no story. These guys don't even interact in Mexico with one another, but I think putting Capitan Suicida in there with Ultimo Guerrero was sort of like a litmus test to see how he does, to see whether or not they want to bring him back, because he's kind of facilitating that Fuego spot on this tour.
But yeah, he looked great, and there was a great spot where he goes for the big, tope, and Ultimo catches him and powerbombs him to the outside. And
oh yeah, I've seen him do that in Arena Mexico a few times, but it was nasty to see that in Corkin.
Yeah, and the cool spot, Ultimo Guerrero, he's a bigger guy, and there's a cool spot where he jumped up on the rope, and Captain Suicida was like, how did he do that?
Yeah, he was looking like Who's the dude that walks the ring ropes?
Grand Metalik.
Yeah, like Grand Metalik. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so yeah, that was an awesome match of their Ultimo Guerrero getting the win over Capitan Suicida. And then the other singles match, we had Volador Jr. defeating Templario in the semi-main event, 14 minutes and 25 seconds.
I'm 4.25 on that one. Loved that match. Just a high-level athleticism, showcase of, high-flying luchador. It was like I don't even know what the right word is, but it was really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they call Volador the Skywalker. Like, this guy does some incredible high-flying stuff, and for years now has been one of the highlights of this Fantastica Mania tour in the relationship with CMLL, one of the top guys that comes over. And also we know the rivalry that he has going for our good friend Rocky Romero right now in CMLL as well. But yeah, Volador absolutely killed it. Templario looked really good in this match as well.
They had Templario beat him in clean fashion in a tag team match earlier on the tour as well, leading up to this. So there was a little bit of a backstory there too.
Yeah. And then the main event for the CMLL World Welterweight title, Teton successfully defended the title against Soberano Jr., 12 minutes and 4 seconds.
Jeremy, if I told you I went 4.5 on a 12-minute match, would you say I'm crazy?
I don't know on that. I'm probably more 4.25, but I can see you going 4.5. As soon as the bell rang, they went balls to the wall. Big suicide dive right after the bell rings, and these guys were flying all over the place.
This is what's missing from Best of the Super Juniors the past few years. This match just fucking ruled. It was like a high-flying car crash. I know we got to get into some other stuff. I don't want to waste too much more time, but I'm telling you guys, if you haven't seen this match, Teton versus Soberano Jr., 12 minutes, do yourself a favor, go watch that match.
Yeah, it was an awesome main event there. Great defense of the title for Teton. And Soberano Jr., like we were saying earlier, he looked great in this matchup. The last time he was in Super Juniors, there's a lot of people who were kind of ragging on him and kind of asking why he was there. Well, he definitely belongs in the Best of Super Juniors now. Just he's gotten so much better in the ring. His high flying, some of the stuff he did in this match was just incredible. And so the Fantastica Mania tour will finish up tomorrow on the 28th. You got Kosei Vegeta and Magia Blanca versus Capitan Suicida and Yuto Nakashima. Tiger Mask versus El Hijo de Villano 3. Tanahashi, Rei Kometa, Oiwa, and Kojima will take on Bushi, Hiromu, Naito, and Teton. Okamura will take on Dulce Gardenia. Hichachero will take on Soberano Jr. We'll have another one of those Revelos I can't even say it.
I couldn't pronounce it for the longest time either.
The Incredible Rivals match, the 6-man match, Desperado, Templario, and Volador Jr. taking on Barbaro, Cavernario, Master Wato, and Ultimo Guerrero. And then the main event will be Mystico versus Atlantis Jr., which they did build up on today's show after that tag match. There was a post-match angle where Mystico hit a big dive on Atlantis Jr., and they both were kind of holding their belts up, and so
yeah,
a big match.
Well, that's the cool thing. They are two world champions, and it's a non-title match. And Mystico is the historic world middleweight champion, and Atlantis Jr. is the historic world light heavyweight champion. So it's going to be, and basically, I think Atlantis Jr. is the man to usurp Mystico and kind of fill his spot in the very near future. So. I do expect Mystico to go over on this night because they typically send the fans home happy, and Atlantis is kind of playing a quasi-Rudo on this tour. But that's almost like a generational passing of the torch type of situation there. So they've been alluding to it all week. Atlantis Jr. did pick up a submission victory over Mystico earlier on the tour in a tag match. So that's probably your dead giveaway that Mystico is going to win here.
Yeah.
Couple other things though, the Akamura Dolce Gardenia match, they had a big post-match brawl and shouting match. So they kind of put a little heat on that. And all week, Tiger Mask and El Hijo del Villano 3 have been going at it, trying to unmask one another. That has probably been the nastiest little mini feud of the entire tour.
Yeah, he ripped off Tiger Mask's mask
on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
So I think Tiger Mask is going to pick up the victory and also unmask Villano 3 at some point, probably post-match. And, that tag match or Hechicero versus Soberano Jr. looks really, really good too. So, and they're going to go all out. It's the final night of Corkin. So I would say if you haven't been watching this tour, you just want to cherry pick that 6-man tag I mentioned on night 4. And then the 3 singles matches from today's show are definitely well worth your time to go check out. And I would say probably tune in for the last night, because that's usually the big night where the big matches and the big performances take place. And I'm at the point now where I wasn't even excited for this tour, but after watching it all today, I'm all in, and I'm very excited for tomorrow's show. And it is amazing that there's literally no one else like reviewing this shit, like hardly at all. And it's been so good. So
yeah, it's been fun. So now we'll move on. Speaking of high flying, we'll talk about the All-Star Junior Festival that's coming up. I believe that is March 1st, so this week, for that Hiromu Takahashi produce show, which will be pay-per-view on New Japan World. We got the match card here. The match order is going to be determined by entrance music on that night. So there was some mistranslation at first with the English card that got put out on the English site, because they had Wato in the main event, but Wato is not in the main event. The match order is unknown, so it'll be a mystery vortex kind of thing with the match order the night of.
I don't believe that. I think we're going to see big match Wato versus Aoyagi. Let's run it. That's what's going to headline.
A main event in any building in the world.
Yeah, so we got the card here. So it's going to be a match to support Shinjiro Otani. Tag match here with Takaiwa, Kanemaru, Jun Kasai, Minoru Tanaka, and Takamichi Noku taking on Musashi, Kitamura, Leona, Shoki, and Sekafuda from BJW. So that'll be that matchup there. We're also going to have Kodaka and Mao taking on Sho and Unryo. Master Wato take on Aoyagi from All Japan. It's going to be a 5-way match with Taiji Ishimori taking on Soberano Jr., taking on Shun Skywalker, taking on Ninja Mac and Yohei. Then
I didn't realize Ninja Mac made it on the show. That's sick.
Yeah, that match is going to be dope. It's going to be a 3-way tag match. We're going to have Desperado and Volador Jr. Teaming up to take on Lindaman and Ueno, and the Los Japones del Mal team of Doki and Hanaoka from Secret Base. Don't know what promotion that is.
It's the Secret Base promotion.
Secret Base. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Taguchi will team up with Hikaru Sato and Yumehito Imanari, and they will take on Great Sasuke, Tiger's Mask, and Baton Bura Bura. Then there's going to be
My name is Tiger's Mask. What are you doing, bro? There's already Tiger Mask. It's different. It's Tiger's Mask.
I'm plural. There's going to be an 8-man masked tag match with Mystico, Billy Ken Kid, Alejandro, and Guru-kun Mask taking on Dragon Kid, Bushi, Atlantis Jr., and Black Mensore. And then Hiromu Takahashi will team up with Vegeta Jr., Hayato, and Amakusa to take on Hayata, Yamato, and Kazuki Hashimoto.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that that's likely the main event, probably, but that remains to be seen. But a lot to unpack here. I mean, I think one of the positives is you have so many different people from so many different companies getting all these looks that it's kind of fresh and exciting. But one of the negatives is you have so many people from so many different companies. I don't know if that's necessarily a draw, because you don't know who these people are one way or the other. So you're kind of banking on the idea of intrigue and novelty to kind of attract people in an audience. But I mean, I know some of these names, but I mean, even the most knowledgeable pro head's not going to know most likely all these wrestlers. I don't know most of them.
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently, and they're excited for this show, but they also said it's kind of an indictment of like the junior level in Japan right now. Like there's some names on here for sure, but like, what's exciting, right?
I disagree.
Okay, but I'm sharing an anonymous person's opinion. So, and
right,
because I agree with it to some extent, because even the heavy, if you gave me a list of heavyweights, this number of heavyweights from these companies, I'm probably going to recognize 90% of them.
Possibly. I mean, and junior wrestling has always been presented at a lower level by and large in Japan anyways, and probably just in wrestling in general. But I got to tell you, I think that it's not necessarily an indictment on junior wrestling across the board, because if hypothetically New Japan and Dragon Gate and Noah and All Japan decided to just dominate this thing and stack it up with their rosters, there's plenty of quality juniors that do exist out there. I think the difference is that they kind of tried to sparse out the amount of like participations that those bigger companies have and allow some of the, like a Secret Base or a 666 or what have you. And I think that's partly because I think it's just part of like Hiromu's vision to kind of give a showcase to smaller companies and sort of have like like something that's all inclusive that allows all of these other groups to participate, even if realistically they probably shouldn't be, because maybe they're not at the same skill level. They're still putting some spotlight and shine on them, which I think is in some ways a positive.
Oh, it's a super positive. And to be clear, when this show was announced, this is about the card that I imagined. You know, like obviously I'm not like picking, names out of a hat like this, but like this is the type of card that I imagined that we would see. So I'm excited to check it out. I'm excited to see kind of, what they do with it. I mean, who gets their shine, who's surprising, right? Like, I don't really know who to look out for, right? I mean, there's all these names that I am familiar with, but I hope someone who pops up and surprises me too. And it's neat that they did it in a way where some of these CMLL guys can be on it too. And I kind of hope that leading to probably May and Best of Super Juniors, like this is kind of the talent pool that we're working with, and maybe you see some of these guys pop up on a proper New Japan tournament.
Yeah, all of these guys should treat this as a big tryout for Super Juniors and should go out here. If you're a non-New Japan guy on this show, like go out there and absolutely kill it. So that you got bring back in May for Best of Super Juniors.
I think for me, looking at this card, the two matches that stand out as being something I really want to see, number one is probably the 5-way match, Ishimori against Soberano, against Shun Skywalker, against Ninja Mac, against Yohei. That sounds incredible. That's one of the few matches that on paper I'm like, that sounds incredible, especially since I know all those wrestlers. And then the other one is I like the 3-way tag. Despy and Volador against Lindemann and Yuki Ueno, and then Doki and Haneoka. I don't know him, but I love Doki, so I think that one's going to be interesting. And one thing we didn't touch too much on during our Fantastica Mania review, there's been a couple instances on this tour where we've seen Desperado and Doki face off in tag matches for the first time post LIJ split, or not, I'm sorry, Suzuki-gun split. So we're going to see them against one another here again in this match, and I think that's going to be really good.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That kind of dives into a OK 890's question: what match and wrestler are you most looking forward to seeing on the All-Star Junior Festival? And I agree with you. I think that 5-way match is probably going to be the match of the night. Ninja Mac, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He's absolutely awesome. We saw him for the first time during pandemic WrestleMania weekend here in Tampa, outdoor in Ybor. He's just out here flipping in the middle of Ybor City, and he was just absolutely incredible. And he's been killing it ever since then, doing great stuff in Noah's junior division. He's just such a dynamic guy, can do some crazy flips. So he's gonna be really fun.
What's the move that him and Ricochet do? It's not the 450. It's like the next level up.
630.
Yeah, it's like he's casually doing 630s to the outside on a group of people, and I'm like, what? Why? You're an Ebor, bro. Like, what are you doing?
I think this 8-man mask tag will be pretty fun too.
Oh yeah,
I love Dragon Kid. Dragon Gate's kind of my second Japanese promotion that I actually pay close attention to. So Dragon Kid's great. And then obviously the 5-way is going to be cool with Shun. I mean, Shun Skywalker is incredible. If we get big match Taiji Ishimori, we're going to have a really good time. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be a really cool match. And I hope that gets some time for all 5 of those dudes to get some shine too. The Hiromu match will be cool too. I mean, we've got Yamato in there and Amakusa. Like you're kind of going back to some of that stuff that we saw at the Noah show too. So that'll be there's enough on here that whets my palate and makes me want to watch it for sure. I know the broadcast team is very nervous about keeping up with who's who and what's what. So they I'm sure they will do a great job, but that's the read of the room right now.
Yeah, and there's also I also like that they have a few veterans that we haven't, or they're still active in their promotions, but they were on bigger stages in the past, and maybe we haven't seen in a while. Like Junior Hayato, he's probably going to be in the main event. He's a guy that I've always liked a lot.
Minoru Tanaka.
Minoru Tanaka, Tetsuhito Takaiwa is coming back, and I don't think he's worked a New Japan show in quite a long time. So there's some really cool stuff on this show. I'm just curious to see how it does, being the fact that it is a pay-per-view. And, Noah has shown that you can do really incredible business on a streaming model with pay-per-view or non-pay-per-view if it's a big, big show with a big draw. But this is essentially kind of like a dream produce show. I don't know if it's got enough oomph to capture people's imaginations like that to garner the buys that they might be looking for something like this. And maybe that leads into another conversation that we haven't had on the show. We haven't been steering away from it, but I know it's been coming for a long time. We just keep forgetting to talk about it. But it's like you're seeing more and more and more pay-per-views, both in the US and domestically now for New Japan. And it's starting to get to a point. When is that going to, where does that end? Because I can see one day them charging for a Wrestle Kingdom or a G1 final or something like that. And it's starting to feel, I don't know, not good.
Well, I think the thing is, they're seeing, their sister promotion in Stardom, who's doing pay-per-views every other weekend at this point, and are doing great buys, are making great revenue. And Rocky said that the U.S. pay-per-views they do good buys on Fight TV with that. So, and I think AEW has been another success story of that too, showing that pay-per-view is still alive and well. It's not just about streaming. So I mean, unfortunately for us, that means that we have to pay more for some of these bigger shows. But it does seem like there's still a pay-per-view audience, and Stardom's been able to capitalize on that, and now it's like New Japan is trying to capitalize on it as well.
Have they done They haven't done a pay-per-view for anything in Japan that doesn't involve other companies, though. Is that correct?
No, they haven't. But okay. I mean, it's starting to feel like those are soft test runs for a potential. And I mean, we don't have any inside information about this, but it just feels that way. Like they've done it for the Stardom show. They've done it. They're doing it for this show. They've done it for the Produce JTO shows with Takataichi Mania and all that. And it just feels like, and then that's all on top of all the US pay-per-views, which admittedly Battle in the Valley probably was worth a pay-per-view buy. But prior to that, they've been doing them quarterly for shows that didn't really feel worthy of a pay-per-view buy in the US, personally, just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fair opinion.
So I'm getting to the point where I'm like, when do they pull out the stop and be like, hey, we're doing a dome show in the middle, Dominion, we're doing a dome show and it's on pay-per-view this year, bigger than ever. And it's like, damn, I don't want to do that.
Well, the exchange rate's still good, so.
That's true. But I feel like that's where this is headed, and I don't think that there's anything stopping them from potentially going that way. And I think that this show is another, potential mile marker to that destination.
It's possible. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything either. I don't think they would make their product more inaccessible than they already do. For some of the core stuff.
Right.
Like Wrestle Kingdom is what gets people to sign up for New Japan World.
Yeah.
And New Japan World is a huge piece to the puzzle of their business and their partnership with TV Asahi. So I can't imagine a scenario in the near future that they go like pay-per-view for Wrestle Kingdom. Though, I mean, the one thing I will say is that it wouldn't surprise me if like English language ends up a paid feature. I mean, that's kind of what the fight situation was. So I don't think that'll be the case, but that it wouldn't really shock me.
I think the business that they've been doing over in Noah with this Keji Muto retirement tour might, influence that to go the opposite way, though, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they've shown that if you have a big enough draw and something that people really want to see, and you put it in a big building like the Tokyo Dome, that instead of getting those people to sign up for your streaming service, you can charge them for the pay-per-view, just like AEW does quarterly, and it'll sell. And they might look at that and weigh the pros and cons and be like, yeah, what's better, reoccurring $9.99 a month that maybe they can cancel at any time, or, $40 from, that they're going to 100% pay because it's Wrestle Kingdom. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. I don't know. It's just my gut instinct.
I don't know. There was a lot of pride with some of those Wrestle Kingdom numbers, subscriber numbers and stuff. So
that's true.
That was really big, and they made sure that people heard about it too. So I'm an optimist, right? So so I have, I just don't think that that's the direction they're going to go. But on my end, I'm paying like less than $8 a month to get my favorite wrestling right now. And, if I've got to fork over a 20 spot occasionally for something cool, I'll probably do it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a delicate balance because, like you're saying, obviously getting subscribers to New Japan World is definitely a big goal and something that they continue to do every year. Like you mentioned, every time there's big numbers, they always, throw out, 100,000 subscribers, as many active, as many minutes watched kind of thing. And so I think they definitely will still want to grow that base, but at the same time to kind of dip into this pay-per-view model and getting some money there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how that grows and how they kind of continue to balance that. But last thing here before we move off of the All-Star Junior Festival from Dom Homie 101, is this the beginning of more All-Star Junior shows?
I think it could very, very potentially lead to something like that. I mean, we've seen in the past where they've done like, say, all-together shows, in the wake of like natural disasters and stuff like that. And those didn't persist. We saw a couple of them and then they kind of just phased out. But with the trend kind of changing recently from these companies being like isolationists and kind of moving to a more harmonious, interconnected working relationship type of situation, there's no reason necessarily that we couldn't see something like this again down the road, or more participation from domestic companies when, say, a Super J Cup or Best Super Juniors is on the horizon. So I think that, like you guys said, this is like a tryout for a lot of these talents to sort of showcase who they are and make a name for themselves. And they should all go in with that mindset, expecting that maybe down the road this opens doors one way or the other.
I would love to see a proper one night J Cup. That would just be so much fun. Like that would definitely get me to fork it over if it's a pay-per-view, and it would be. So, but that's the thing I want to see. I want to see like something with some stakes. This show is cool the first time, but I don't know how many times can you kind of pull something like this at this level with this type of card without. I mean, it's kind of like you go back to how New Japan did the first Noah Yokohama show, like not much to sink your teeth into on that one. And then the second time you come back and then you've got this LJ Congo thing going on, and that leads to the Muto show, right? Like I think we could see that type of progression with a show like this, but this is also just kind of a Hiromu produce thing. So it's not necessarily like company driven, but that's not to say something like a J Cup couldn't be.
Well, if they're smart, these different companies should work with New Japan and work with Hiromu in the sense of saying like, hey, I know that maybe like there is an opportunity for guys to come back down the road, but what if you let guy from X company and guy from B company work an angle on this show, and then it leads to something between these two smaller promotions, maybe like a Michinoku Pro and a Ganbare Pro, and then they can do business with one another off of the heels of working the show. I think that that's something we should definitely be on the lookout for, is potential interwoven storylines between different companies, which, almost sounds like fan fictionist, but this show is almost fan fiction. The fact that this many companies are working together is outlandish. So I'm kind of expecting some outlandish shit to come out of it.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Chris. I definitely think the next step would be do something cool, a one-night Super J Cup, or if you did some other kind of one-night junior tournament kind of thing.
Aren't they usually like 2 nights?
The J Cup has been the last few have been like 2 or 3 nights.
Yeah.
One of them was pandemic. One of them was kind of West Coast America, where they started in Seattle and they ended in San Francisco. That was 2019.
That was one of that ELP one, right?
Well, he won
both
2 in a row.
2 in a row,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. The gold jacket.
Yeah.
But I mean, legit, I think the coolest thing they could do would be a single night J Cup, like really old school style, and a lot of short sprints, and a really good main event. That'd be a killer show.
Yeah.
But I think even like the 94 one, wasn't that 2 nights? It was first stage and then second stage back to back. I think it was. I could be wrong.
It's all on one VHS to me.
All right, well, let's move on now to talk about New Japan Cup. And for you guys who are new to New Japan, the New Japan Cup is New Japan's version of March Madness. And speaking of March Madness, a friend of the show, the Discord daddy, MJ Does PR, guest on the show, he's running a NCAA March Madness tournament, Social Suplex March Madness. So if you join our Discord channel and go to the NCAA channel within our Discord, the link is there to that. So shout out to Discord daddy, MJ Does PR, for running that. So if you're a big NCAA March Madness fan, you can join that tournament. But let's talk about the New Japan Cup 2023 and start off here.
Before we do, I was wrong. The first Super J Cup was 1 night only. There you go, Chris.
Knew it. I thought so, but I wasn't sure enough to battle you on it.
I wasn't sure either. That's what I was asking.
We had a question here from Dom Homie. I thought would be good to kick us off. He says, any bold predictions for this year's New Japan Cup? And we got the bracket here in front of us. So on the left side, we got Sonata and Taichi, with Kenta getting a bye, Naito versus ELP, Chase Owens getting a bye, Ren Narita versus Evil, Jeff Cobb getting a bye, Yano versus Mark Davis, and Will Ospreay getting a bye. On the right side, we got Yoshihashi versus Kyle Fletcher, with Hiroki Goto getting a bye, Shingo Takagi versus Aaron Henare, Tama Tonga getting a bye, David Finlay versus Tomohiro Ishii, with Great Okan getting a bye, and Umino versus Yujiro Takahashi, with Zack Sabre Jr. getting a bye.
My bold prediction is that the Final Four will feature 4 wrestlers who have never won the New Japan Cup.
Oh, that's a good prediction. Mine is that Tomohiro Ishii is running through this shit, and he will be the winner of the New Japan Cup 2023. It's his time. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, completely ignore the David Finlay promo.
Yeah,
after the Jay White match.
he's losing first round.
He's going out in the first round.
Then Okan is losing. Then Zack Sabre Jr. is going to get his ass beat by Tomohiro Ishii in under 15 minutes, and it will not lead to a title match, like because Ishii's passed the TV title. And then after that, he's going to beat Shingo, and then after that, he's going to beat Will Ospreay.
You know, that sounds like a great run. So you've sold me because that would be a pretty good path there.
That's not happening. He's losing first round to David Finlay.
It'll probably be sweet though.
My bold prediction is El Phantasmo is gonna beat Tetsuya Naito on March 5th, and he's gonna go deep in this tournament. He might even win the tournament and claim the leadership of Bullet Club.
I agree with you. I think he is gonna go deep in the tournament as well.
Yeah, that's my lock, actually, is Phantasmo makes it to the Final Four.
Yeah, it's not that bold, Jeremy. We all know that. everyone that follows this company knows what's happening.
I know.
Well, here's the thing. Naito went on a streak at some point where he lost 3 first round for Japan Cup matches in a row. And then last year he was in the final, but now he's just going to go back to losing in the first round again. El Phantasmo was the perfect person to beat him. And then have some weird, wacky match with Chase Owens, Bullet Club, Civil War, blah, 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 who knows. And then probably, I don't know, Taichi. Like, El Phantasmo's path to the Final Four, it's pretty clear.
It is funny that, like, Naito is going from headlining the Tokyo Dome and retiring a legend to potentially losing to ELP first round of the New Japan Cup, right off the heels of it.
Not even first round, first night.
First night, yeah.
I mean, just like, boom, you're gone. I mean, I'll actually be more surprised if Naito wins.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get people over. I mean, Naito can afford a loss and he'll be just as popular. He'll be fine. But I think, people have been asking us, who do you elevate? Ibushi's gone. Jay White's gone. Like, all these spots are gone. Who do you elevate? Well, I think it's been very clear that El Phantasmo is somebody that they're invested in. He's been getting some big spots and moments. And, he's elevated heavyweight. He's had the feud with Tama Tonga for the Never title. So I think now's the time, especially with a Jay White gone. You're looking for more top heels. Bullet Club is looking for a leader. I think now is the time to pull the trigger. You have Phantasmo beat Naito, and then one night you've created, another main eventer. You can do a lot of cool stories with Phantasmo going forward.
There's somebody worth elevating in every quadrant of the bracket, and I think that's what's kind of neat and something interesting to keep an eye out, right? Like El Phantasmo in the top left, Red Narita in the bottom left, Kyle Fletcher in the top right, and we'll probably come back to that, and Shota or David Finlay or both, or Great Okan in the bottom right. I mean, the bottom right is stacked with kind of new up-and-comers.
You forgot Aaron Henare.
Yeah.
No, but I agree with you, Chris, and I think it's also interesting because while you see those guys that can definitely be utilized to be elevated all throughout the tournament, so there's a lot of fresh blood. There's a lot of other guys that just have other things going on, like how we pointed out Naito coming off of a big win and people thinking, I mean, there's some very smart individuals in the space that think that he's getting poised to go on a monster run here in New Japan. And who knows, maybe this is part of that. Maybe it's not. We don't know. We don't know what's going on with Sonata and his losing streak and how that might play into this. Is this just going to be more of the same, or are we going to see something occur there? What's going on with Shingo? There's a lot of like established guys that have their own narratives going into this. And I feel like in the past, we've seen New Japan Cups where there were established stars, but there weren't necessarily these many running narratives entering into the tournament. And it's making this one a little unique.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Kyle Fletcher, Chris, on the top right there, because I think we're going to see a story there of him beating both tag champions to get him and Mark Davis a title match. So he'll beat Yoshihashi on March 10th, meet Goto on March 12th, beat Goto, then move on to March 18th.
Which will probably
I didn't even think of that. You guys are you're on it.
would either be then probably Shingo or Tama Tonga, and either one of those is great. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that I know New Japan has always been really high on. I mean, people have said that for a long time, not necessarily even just as a member of Aussie Open, but as a single. So he's the guy of the tag team that they see as someone who can break out, and age and athleticism kind of speaks to that as well. Not that Mark Davis is any slouch, dude's amazing, but like Kyle Fletcher's worth watching in this tournament, because if he can buzz through even just the first 2 rounds, that's huge for a guy who's really only done tag stuff. But he's had a couple of singles matches on the Tamashii shows, and people are starting to put the pieces together that he's someone that New Japan's really high on.
Yeah, there was also the Will Ospreay match during the pandemic in the Empty Arena Rev Pro Series.
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
Where Fletcher had put on so much weight, it was a beefy boy.
Bro, he wasn't a beefy boy. He was a fucking giant. He was a juggernaut. Like, you look at how big Will Ospreay is now, and he was putting on weight back then, and Will's pretty big. Kyle was way bigger than him. Like, he was like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, he was like Vader. It was crazy. Am I exaggerating?
Yeah, that's
like,
a little
just a little bit, but he was like really big.
No. I don't mean he was like Vader. I mean, comparatively speaking, like compared to Will, he was like a Vader to like a normal person. Like, he was way bigger than him. It's just so outlandish.
Yeah.
How he's able to. I mean, it's kind of deceiving because he's got a big frame, but he doesn't always have all that weight, so you don't think of him as a big guy like that, especially since in the early part of his career, he's such a high flyer and very flippy-do, but he can do it all. He can be a bruiser, and he's a guy that, he's got the frame too. And the difference between him and Mark Davis is very talented as well, but Mark Davis is older than him. He's a pretty young guy still right now, and he's got a lot of years ahead of him.
Yeah. Then also on that left side, there's the continued story with Red Narita and Evil. We've seen the battle between Strong Style and House of Torture over the Never Six-Man title, so we'll see that continue on there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they don't have. I know this sounds like against everything that I'm usually about, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have Evil get Ren Narita out of their first round. You know, normally I would advocate for Ren Narita to go on a run and be one of the guys, but they have so many people like that in this tournament. Some of these guys are going to have to get ousted, and since these two individuals have such a personal issue already at play, I wouldn't be surprised if Evil cheats and gets Ren Narita gone first night or second night, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't think all of the kind of young up-and-comers go really far in this tournament. So, Narita already had his run through the TV title tournament. He had his Tokyo Dome thing. So maybe it is time for him to kind of settle into where he's going to be. And it gets some heat back on Evil, to be perfectly honest. Like, Ren Narita's pretty over. People like him in Japan. People like him in the US. But you need to keep, as much as people are going to hate to hear it, you have to keep Evil in the mix because people fucking hate him. So like, you have to put him in a space for people to get behind whoever he's against.
Yeah.
And if you want to, if I'm looking at this quadrant, you want to kind of like do a full babyface situation with someone like Will Ospreay, then you put him in that quarterfinal matchup against Evil, and it's a clear, face heel dynamic. No more this tweener United Empire thing.
Right. Yeah. Another thing too is like, if you're always beating Evil, then when somebody beats him, it doesn't mean anything. So he needs to have some victories. I am a little curious about that though. You bring up the thing with Will. They've kept him pretty heelish. I would say since his loss to Ospreay, he's leaned more heel than tweener in his feuds and everything after that. Like, he's been getting heat on him, and he was definitely the heel side against Taichi in their match, and he's just kind of seemed nastier and meaner than he was going into the Tokyo Dome. So I am wondering if they are going to do a full flip babyface, because I mean, they could easily do that anytime, or if you do think they're going to go the opposite way and continue with the trend of heel Will Ospreay, which that's what they've been doing so far. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do need a Ren Narita to be his foil down the stretch.
Because Ren Narita's path would then be Evil, and then he would get
Jeff Cobb.
Cobb after the bye. I guess Narita could beat Cobb and then meet Osprey in the quarters. Should be great.
And this is a company where shades of gray, definitely exists. It's not always a perfect alignment, so maybe I'm wrong there. But they could still do Evil and Will Ospreay, and Will doesn't have to be a full-fledged babyface anyways.
Sure, but he's going to be the guy that people get behind
in that match. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't see anyone else to match up against Evil unless Evil's going to the Final Four. In which case, there's a chance El Phantasmo, once he gets past Naito, he goes through like Chase Owens, Kenta, Evil, and he's just buzzing through, Bullet Club and Bullet Club adjacent guys, which could be kind of interesting. I just don't think that's the story to tell, though.
That could establish him as a leader. He's beating all these guys. Like, all right, I beat you all, so you got to follow me. I'm in charge now.
Yeah, that's certainly a story worth telling, I suppose.
Well, since we're on this quadrant, we're kind of breaking it down. I think, just for argument's sake, I think most people are going to assume Yano beats Mark Davis, slip on a banana peel, very similar to what we see out of Yano most years, because otherwise we'll get Davis against Osprey, Aussie Open versus Aussie Open, which they could go that way. And if they did go that way, if you have Cobb go through on the other side of that bracket, you could have Will going back to back against Aussie Open, against United Empire members. And maybe that's a story that they're trying to tell, because I am kind of looking at this and I'm wondering, like, does Will need to go deep? He's already won this tournament before. Is now the time for them to have him go against Okada again? And if not, who should he be losing to, And I don't know if I see anybody in this block that a loss really makes sense. And it's sort of like, I'm almost kind of like making him the natural victor of that quadrant, just based on the matchmaking. It doesn't look like there's anyone that can beat him except for maybe a Jeff Cobb or, a cheating Evil.
But even so, if they go Cobb, that's kind of messes with some dynamics of United Empire. They don't usually do that in a single. Maybe they'll pull that in a G1, but they don't usually pull that in a single elimination situation. It could be interesting if Osprey does get out of this quadrant and meets up with El Phantasmo in the Final Four. That would be, because they have had some great matches in the past, and I would love to see them have a great match as heavyweights. So that's an interesting call out, just because that I think Narita and Osprey are the guys to watch on the bottom left quadrant.
Yeah, I would love to see also Osprey and ELP run it in the Final Four. That would be the March 19th matchup there if they both make it through. I think that would be a lot of fun, and I think Phantasmo beating Osprey, if you're really trying to establish ELP, beating Naito, beating, Sonata or Kenta up there and getting to Osprey, then beating Osprey, I'm sure you can do some shenanigans here so Osprey's not losing clean. But him beating...
I am wondering if Yano beats Osprey.
Right. Like, anyone can get Yano'd.
Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't know. Like, putting Will deep into the tournament just, for me, doesn't make a lot of sense unless you want him to win it or you want him to lose in a high-profile spot and put somebody over. But if you have him lose to Yano early, anyone can get Yano'd, and it's the most New Japan Cup shit ever. They've done it before to Tanahashi and others. And then that kind of opens the door for Evil to be in the Final Four, and that sort of makes more New Japan Cup sense to me than anything else.
Yeah, but then he's meeting up with...
Then you potentially have him and ELP, and you have the whole Bullet Club leadership situation very much in flux. I know that I'm not one of those people that's like loving or the idea of that whole thing, but it's very much on the table right now.
Yeah, I'm not clamoring for a Bullet Club war, whatever, but they got to do something here, right? At some point you have to say Jay White's gone.
Yeah.
So Bullet Club
is no more. It's gone.
Like, theoretically had a leader and no longer has a leader. Like, someone needs to step up into that role, and maybe that'll actually be interesting. So yeah, I don't. It's interesting to see a New Japan Cup with a bunch of kind of new names and not 48 people, right? So it's a lot easier to look at each quadrant, which only has like six. I mean, not like only has 6 wrestlers in it, and kind of break it down.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the top right quadrant. I think we've been overlooking Aaron Hanare. I think there's potential here.
Oh, you were serious?
Well, you think he's going to beat Shingo?
I think there's a possibility he could.
That first round upset thing is a real thing.
And
so.
He lost to Show that one time.
Yeah, and Shingo's KOPW. You need a new challenger. You can have Hanare beat him here. That sets up a KOPW match.
I like that.
It also keeps Shingo away from Tama Tonga with the Never belt.
Right.
I wouldn't say we were overlooking it. I just haven't looked at these brackets. You're trying to finish Fantastica Mania. I don't want to put too much on my plate.
doing that prep.
But no, Jeremy, I agree with you. I think that's probably a good way to go, unless you have Shingo and Tama Tonga, which sounds a little sexier.
I mean, unless you want Shingo in the Never, mix.
Yeah.
Which I do. I want that. But
yeah.
is that what the bookers want? While he's holding the KOPW and kind of doing nothing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just say, we're kind of assuming Kyle Fletcher is going to beat both Yoshihashi and Goto. I think that the whole tag title thing could work if Goto beats him anyways. There's still a way to out of that
you could
situation.
still get there.
But if he does beat Goto, which would be a pretty incredible run to beat both those guys back to back, who's he facing then out of Shingo, Hanare, and Tama Tonga? How's that playing out?
I think Tama would probably go through.
Okay, so you've got Hanare pulling the upset on Shingo, and then Tama Tonga beating Hanare, and you end up with Tama Tonga versus Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, that probably is the chalk pick. Maybe.
Well, I don't know, because I think a lot of people were probably expecting Shingo to just kind of go through sort of like Ospreay.
Yeah.
This is tough. This is a tough year.
Yeah.
It is. I think it's a tough year mostly because we're truly seeing a transition of some of the talent in New Japan, right? Like, this is the first New Japan Cup in a while that you don't see guys like Tenzan and Kojima and like whatever in the first round. Even though last year that was kind of a farce because it was a 48-person tournament. Like, the fact that this is all guys that are kind of young and younger and current, and a fair amount of first timers even, that does make it a significantly more interesting tournament.
I will say this. It is an interesting tournament from the standpoint of predictability. It's hard to predict, and it's also interesting because there's a lot of unique matchups. But there's not very many matches that I'm looking at for the first 2 rounds, no matter what the outcomes are, where I'm like, oh, I have to see that. Those don't really start, if at all, happening until the semifinals. Most of these brackets, to me, unless very specific things that are highly unlikely take place, there's just not very many, high-profile matches on paper here.
You mean Umino and Yujiro not doing it for you?
No.
Umino and Zack Sabre Jr. does it for me.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. I mean, yes. But I'm also, I don't know, I still have the bad taste from the Naito match in my mouth. And I still think there's very much a question mark with Umino.
I think the best first round match is probably going to be either ELP and Naito or Sonata and Taichi.
I was going to say David Finlay and Tomohiro Ishii.
Oh yeah,
that'll be sweet.
Yeah.
And plus, we don't know what David Finlay is going to be wrestling like with this whole new persona and everything like that. And that's probably one of the biggest stories of the tournament in general.
Yeah.
That's on the anniversary show too. So kind of a touch of a bigger stage.
Yeah. The one hard thing I'm having a hard time with right now is I'm picturing 4 foreigners going into the final 4. Do you think they would do that? because I'm thinking you would get possibly Kyle Fletcher, or actually Tama Tonga and Finley on the right, and then ELP and maybe Osprey on the left. But that can't happen, right?
I don't think that that's likely to happen at all.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got to throw in a guy like Narita or Umino or even Great Okan. Let's not forget that he's, around.
Well,
he's got Finley, though.
There's also the thing where Sonata, even though he's in the middle of a losing streak and everything like that, he always does well in New Japan Cup for whatever reason. He's got a long history of success in this tournament, and who knows, maybe this tournament will be the turning point of whatever that story that they're trying to kick off even is. We saw it in the past with Evil, when like Evil wasn't on a hot streak. He was like the lowest performing member of LIJ, and then he turned it around in the cup and then turned heel and joined Bullet Club. So what if they're doing something like that with Sonata?
I mean, here's the thing about Sonata. Sonata is 13-6 all time in New Japan Cup matches, and he's 10-2 against wrestlers in his quadrant all time. So like,
he always gets like down to the finals and then loses.
Well, I mean, he's been in 6 New Japan Cups. He's never been exited. He's never been eliminated in the first round. So, and he's 5-1 in New Japan Cup matches at Korakuen, which is where his first round match is with Taichi. So all the stats are showing that Sonata is probably going to do okay, but his vibe is not that right now. His vibe is that he's going to lose in the first round for the first time ever. And
if that happens,
part of the story.
That's a narrative. That's part of the story. Very interesting. Yeah, and I'm wondering what happens between Taichi and Kenta coming out of that, if that's the way it rolls.
Kenta, the new strong openweight champion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So maybe Taichi wins that and then challenges for that title.
Yeah.
Because I guess now that title needs to do stuff like outside of the US. I don't know. There's so many freaking titles.
Yeah.
It is interesting how you have heavy United Empire in the bottom left quadrant and then heavy Bullet Club in the top right, or top left quadrant.
Yeah.
So that whole side of the tournament is very Bullet Club and United Empire heavy just in general.
Yeah.
And kind of keep, like, for instance, like a guy like Tama Tonga, he doesn't have any Bullet Club in his quadrant. So they've sort of made that a total non-issue. We don't have to worry about him getting wrapped up in that storyline at all during this tournament until maybe the tail end if he goes that far.
Do we think Umino's going to upset on Sabre to get a TV title match?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've got.
That's a great question.
Penciled in, just because you got to figure they gotta set up something there. So either Umino or I guess Great Okan or Finley.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of options in that bottom right.
I don't know. Well, now's probably not the right time to go that way with Umino, but I think, yeah. Well, what I'm thinking, I'm not fully thinking out my whole thoughts. I was thinking now might not be a good time to have him win a New Japan Cup, but because he has Zach right there, him getting that win would definitely mean something for a title shot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up with like Umino and David Finlay to kind of decide that quadrant. That's probably the likely scenario.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and then really either one could go through, depending on what they're trying to do. The thing is, who in this group of 24, who do you see taking on Okada and selling tickets to Secret Genesis?
Right, and that's a great question, and I'm really not sure on that. And I am a little bit bearish on the idea. I know a lot of people are predicting Dave Finlay just because, reasons.
Well, the big angle in San Jose.
And I think it makes sense, but I don't know if right now, even with all the momentum behind him and all the improvements that he made during the G1, if there's enough momentum to carry him into a program that draws money with Okada. In fact, most of the people in this tournament, I'd say no.
Yeah, the thing with Finley though, if he is gonna lead Bullet Club or lead some other kind of faction, and they're really heating him up, if he has a run in this tournament, like I think that will do a great job to establish him there going into Okada.
Can they really keep giving foreigners their own units?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. We got
It is a
Zach,
lot.
we got Will, we got people talking about David Finley that way. I don't know. El Fantasma, maybe, I guess. Somebody's going to lead Bullet Club, and it's going to be a white dude. Like,
from a traditional standpoint, just looking at the brackets, the only people that are proven commodities that could headline and do business with Okada on that level would essentially be Naito, Will Ospreay, Shingo, and Zack Sabre Jr. Almost everybody else on the list would be considered like a tier down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think any of those four make the final four.
Yeah.
Maybe are we selling Jeff Cobb short?
Yeah, that was my other. I thought you might mention him as you went through it. Like, he's done business with Okada
during G1,
right? And G1 and G1 adjacent, right?
Right.
So, like, is that big enough?
I think if you gave him the right matches during this tournament and really built him up to be presented the way they have in the G1 in the past as like a monster who's dominant, then yeah, possibly. And I mean, I think that we've all talked about the upside of Jeff Cobb in the past. They just kind of cooled him down in the past year.
If Cobb's going into a match with Okada, he's probably got to beat Ospreay.
Yeah.
Right, that's what heats him up.
Right, and that would be a very unique and kind of special thing if that happened.
That would be neat. I'm for it. I just don't. It's hard to imagine a scenario where they actually go with that.
I mean, the booking that I'm seeing is like the least sexy booking for this tournament. Like I'm seeing like, I don't know, because you guys brought up that mention of like they're not going to have 4 foreigners, win these blocks. So I'm like, what if we end up with like Goto and Evil winning their blocks versus like an ELP and a David Finley? I think that sounds very realistic for New Japan Cup booking.
Yeah, it's possible.
The G in New Japan Cup does stand for Goto.
I could see him the reason I say that is I could see him beating Tamatonga and maybe potentially being established as like a never title challenger down the line.
Even as a tag champion?
Why not? They've got Okada going after the tag titles as the world champion.
True. On the middle of this tournament, actually. Yeah. For all we know, by the time Goto wrestles, he might not even be a tag champion.
Might not be champion, especially if they've got Aussie Open on their heels.
Yeah, so night 1, March 5th in Cork and Hall. So the full card will have Oiwa and Tamatonga versus CSJ and Kosei Vegeta. Master Wato, Taguchi, Ren Narita, and Shota Umino versus House of Torture. Yuto Nakashima, El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki versus Gato, Chase Owens, and Kenta. Leo Rush on the tour, teaming up with Yo, Toriano, and Bushi. Or actually, Leo Rush, Yo, and Toriano versus Bushi, Hiromu, and Shingo. Then Hanuma, Tanahashi, and Okada versus Yoshihashi, Ishii, and Goto. Then the 2 New Japan Cup matches will be Naito versus ELP and Taichi versus Sonata. We had a question from the Dark Soldier. Do you think Sonata has a good chance of winning the New Japan Cup? He can start behaving like Evil did in 2020 and start acting more brutal, perhaps cheats to beat Naito, and when he wins the tournament, he says he's going to do what Shingo and Naito couldn't and beat Okada. Then Okada beats him, and post-match, he quits LIJ.
I don't know. I don't think Sonata's winning this tournament.
Josh, you're muted if you're talking.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, Chris is talking over me a lot. And then I realized, like, oh, I'm muted. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I think he's going to win the tournament. I definitely think that they're doing something with him with this losing streak. Hopefully it's something positive. I don't know what that is. But I feel like this booking scenario that's been laid out just sounds a little bit too much like just rehashing an old storyline that we've already seen. And my thinking is hopefully they're a little more creative than that to do the exact same thing they did with his tag partner.
Right, and plus too, we've kind of seen the Sonata Okada New Japan Cup story. Like that was like Sonata's whole thing of trying to get to New Japan Cup finals. He finally won it, and then the whole series of Okada, which I know some people love, and we weren't as super high as some other people, but I don't think you go back to that either.
Unless you heat him up with a new coat of paint and a new gimmick and a new lease on life, who knows? I don't know.
I mean, he was wearing a tuxedo when he was hanging out at the. Was that at the Muto show?
It was the Muto show.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring that up, but I didn't know if it held any relevance. I think he just likes to like ball out, you know.
Andrew Rich had I don't know if you guys know Andrew Rich, but he had just a perfect tweet, and it was like a picture of Sonata, and they were like, "Why are you?" He was like, "Why are you in a tuxedo?" And he goes, "It's after 6. What am I, a farmer?" Which is like it's a bit from 30 Rock, but it was so I like cracked up. Like it's the first time reading a tweet that I just like lost my shit for like minutes on end. I just couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, Andrew Rich has a lot of really great.
He's a funny dude.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He's all right. I don't know him. I'm just joking.
But yeah, I think something with Sonata's happening, but maybe this the first loss is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that leads to whatever is happening with him.
They're definitely doing a long game thing with Sonata, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. So moving on from that, the New Japan Pro Wrestling Anniversary event will be the following day, March 6th in Ota City Gym. So we have the full card for that. It'll be ELP and Kenta versus TMDK of Kosei Vegeta and Zack Sabre Jr. Satoshi Kojima, Tama Tonga, and Toru Yano versus Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davidson, and Will Ospreay from United Empire. Then we'll have Strong Style versus House of Torture, non-title match. Then we'll have LIJ, Sonata, Shingo, and Naito versus United Empire's Aaron Henare, Great O'Khan, and Jeff Cobb. We'll have Leo Rush and Yo versus Bushi and Hiromu. And then New Japan Cup first round matchups, Yujiro Takahashi versus Shota Umino. And then Tomohiro Ishii versus David Finlay. And then the main event, like we mentioned, the IWGP Tag Team title match. Bishamon will defend against the Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Kazuchika Okada.
It's a cool card. Just like overall, I think important to note to the listeners that everything on the New Japan Cup tour that isn't in Hamamatsu is a cheering show. Hamamatsu has not decided whether or not they're going to allow cheering yet, but if you know anything about Hamamatsu, it's probably not going to be much different regardless of what they're allowing. But so in all likelihood, the whole tour will be cheering, including Ota City, which is here for the anniversary show. Ota City is where they were still doing clap crowds for, what was that, New Year's Dash, the day after Wrestle Kingdom. So it'll be cool to see this anniversary card in a cheering building. I think the tag match is interesting. I'm not sure how you get out of it. I guess Tanahashi takes the pin or they become the champs, but that seems strange. So I think that'll be a good match though.
I mean, you say it as though it would be some sort of anomaly for the Mega Aces to lose. They've eaten many a pinfall.
Yeah.
They don't win.
But Goto or Yoshihashi doesn't gain anything by pinning Okada, right? Like, so Tanahashi's the guy in that match.
I like all the people that when this match was made, they're like, Okada's made the worst mistake of his life because he's going to get pinned by Yoshihashi and then it's going to set up a title match and then Yoshihashi's going to beat him. They have no idea what he's unleashed.
Or Goto finally gets the big belt.
That would be cool.
I'm for it. I don't think now's the time, but
I'd rather have Suzuki be champion, but
neither of those things is happening.
No. But I mean, yeah, looking at the card top to bottom, I mean, you see that they've got the Strong Style group against House of Torture once again, so probably setting up another Never Six-Man thing, I would say look for a very likely post-match angle setting up their tournament match, Ren Narita and Evil, that is. Obviously, we have the 2 New Japan Cup first-round matches on this night leading to the main event. And I like that we have a little twist here, that it's not, Okada versus Hiromu, which admittedly would be a really good match, but it doesn't have to always be a junior champion versus a heavyweight champion at the anniversary show. I think that for everybody that has complained in the past about them not putting the right emphasis and importance on the junior or on the tag team division and everything, they're pretty much putting their money where their mouth is here, because they're putting their 2 biggest ace stars in a dream match against their most dominant, domestic tag team. And all these guys are pretty much in the same stable, or, have a quasi stable connection with one another. So it's going to be really good. And I am anticipating Tanahashi to eat the what's their finish called? I forget.
Shoto.
Yeah. So I think he eats the Shoto 1, 2, 3.
But yeah, this should be a fun main event. It could have been cool too if they had did like Catch 2-2 versus Bishamon. That could have been a cool.
Oh yeah, that could have been cool.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
This should be fun though. It's kind of weird though if Tanahashi not being a New Japan Cup, then being in this match and then potentially probably losing here. Kind of a weird year for the Ace.
Or just throwing it out there. I mean, who knows? It would change things a lot. But what if Mega Aces do win? Then
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's precedent where we've seen top champions also hold the tag titles on the side as well, in this company and other companies. So it's not like the only time it's ever happened.
Yeah, I think it'd be something cool for Tanahashi to do. It adds a whole new wrinkle to whatever Okada's doing, and I wonder how that shakes Chaos up with Okada teaming with Tanahashi to beat his own stablemates.
That group
It would also, to me, create a scenario where it would be more plausible to think potentially that Okada would lose against the New Japan Cup winner if he also held the tag titles. I mean, this is a very far-fetched scenario. It's probably not happening, but if he were to win the tag titles, then my antennas would go up, and I would start thinking maybe someone from this tournament is going to beat him.
That's a good look there.
I know. Thank you.
Tag titles, they're hour-long time limits?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking maybe a draw. I don't know.
I was wondering about the 30-minute draw, but it's going to be 60 minutes.
They're 60,
so
yeah, they can't do it on this show.
And do the MJF Bryan Danielson Classic,
If honestly, these 4 dudes could probably go Broadway, and it would be a damn good time, though.
Yeah,
it would probably rule.
Yeah.
Well, so that's pretty much it. I mean, before we move on to the news, do we want to do like final predictions, what our brackets are, or anything like that? Like, what do we didn't commit to any definitive predictions.
We had some really good discussion.
Yeah, great discussion, very in depth.
But I will say I have to not do predictions in this avenue because my predictions will be appearing on NJPW 1972.
Oh, gotcha.
So
okay.
I have to give them the exclusive.
So Jeremy, where are you thinking this first quadrant? Who do you got?
In the top left.
Top left.
I'm gonna go with Phantasmo, making it to final.
I'm going Phantasmo as well.
The correct choice.
Bottom left, who do you see?
I hate it, but I'm gonna go Evil.
I'm going Evil as well. I know that sound. I mean, I've just kind of racked all the different possibilities, and I don't think Ren Narita going through makes sense for the reasons we've talked about. And unless you're wanting to have Jeff Cobb or Will Ospreay do an like an interfactional match against one another, I think Yano's probably going to beat Will Ospreay and get him out of the tournament. And then we're going to see like a I think Evil's going to beat Jeff Cobb. Well, I don't know because he's still in the 6-man. This is a tough one, but I'm going to tentatively go with Evil.
Right, he's still in 6-man, which could stop him from going to the finals and winning.
Right. I mean, you could have Will Ospreay if you really wanted to establish ELP. Ospreay would be the guy to beat because he hasn't beat him as a heavyweight yet. He has as a junior in the past, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but they did have a really fantastic match recently in the G1, and maybe he's due to get that win back. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think that's the match.
But they're both foreigners.
I mean, but think about all the foreigners that won at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean,
Gato's booking for us.
It's
them.
It's just this Japanese company's not looking very Japanese. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
I mean, look at the results of Wrestle Kingdom. You're right. You're 100% right. Which is why guys like Ren Narita and Shota Umino are really important to that company, which is why I think maybe we're not giving them their justice, but I don't know. I think the sexiest match on this tournament is ELP Will Ospreay.
I agree, but I'm dismayed because I feel like we're not getting that.
Same here.
I'm going Evil. I think that the Bullet Club issue is still going to be very much on the table throughout this whole thing, and he's like the most likely, domestic star from that quadrant to go through. Personally, I think we're seeing Evil versus ELP. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's what I'm seeing too. But I would prefer ELP Ospreay though. So
top right, who do you got?
I'm overthinking the foreigner thing probably, but I'm gonna go with Tama Tonga coming out that top right.
I'm gonna go with Hiroki Goto. I think Goto's gonna go through, and then without further ado, I think we're gonna see him versus David Finlay.
It is tough to bet against Goto in the New Japan Cup. Like, legitimately, the man owns the New Japan Cup. He has the most New Japan Cup wins, like match victories. It's been a while since he had a good run too.
But that's the thing that's making me feel like maybe I shouldn't go with him, is that he hasn't had a good run in the tournament in a long time. Maybe those days are gone.
Yeah. And it's tag champ and super committed to the tag team thing.
It's like picking Taguchi in a Super Juniors just because he used to do really good back in the day.
Big match.
But yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing. And to be honest, I hope I'm wrong, because it's not necessarily the most alluring. I mean, even with those matchups, nothing coming out of them to me gets me super hyped.
Yeah.
But then again, that's what New Japan Cups kind of used to look like back in the day.
Yeah, this is the level of kind of and the span of talent that we used to see in the New Japan Cups. But like, a lot of weird guys have won New Japan Cups.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I have
nothing's off the table.
I was gonna say I have a tough time ruling anyone out. Because I mean, if you want to go chalk and safe, you can go with Naito or Shingo or Ospreay. If you want to make someone, you've got a bunch of options here that could be made, and I don't know. I mean, maybe the finals, El Phantasmo versus David Finlay for, a title match, and the loser has to lead Bullet Club for 6 years.
I mean, I like my booking of Tomohiro Ishii going through. Those matches sounded awesome. That's what I would do.
He's got a nice path that could make people really excited and establish himself as a Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer.
I think I'm picking ELP to win this tournament regardless, one way or the other, though.
Yeah, I think ELP is the pick, I think, if you want to elevate somebody new.
If there was someone you were going to elevate, I think he's the best bet. You could go with David Finlay, but personally, I don't see money in that right now the same way I see money in ELP as the potential Bullet Club leader against Okada. I think that is something that has more upside right now.
I think if you really want to get ELP over, though, you got to give him Osprey in the semis.
I would agree with that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm still torn on this whole Bullet Club thing with Evil. Maybe I'm crazy on that. I don't know.
I just don't think they're ever going to do a Bullet Club like internal warfare thing.
I don't even know if I would call it that. I think it would be more like establishing him as the leader.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like
nothing's going to come of any of that until Dantaku. Like, that's when they're going to establish like a ton of Bullet Club stuff, because that's
right.
Where, and it's, I think, is this year the 10-year anniversary?
They already did it.
Yeah, they're past 10 years.
Last year? 2 years ago? It's
time. I don't know. It started in 2013, but last year was the 10-year anniversary, right? Or am I wrong on that? Or is this year?
Last year.
Oh, it started in 13. Then this
all right,
year's
so yes, it's 10 year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was right. I was right again.
It just seems like a lot longer.
But ELP's he's got Chase Owens on his bracket that he has to face, and then potentially Kenta, and then if the next guy he beats is Evil,
right?
Those are like three of the top guys in the group. I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and there's nobody. Oh, Yujiro, I guess, is Bullet Club adjacent on the right side of the bracket.
He's the one person that I would. You said that there wasn't anyone you felt comfortable ruling out. I feel comfortable ruling out Yujiro as being he's not winning this tournament. If someone gave you odds to bet on him to not win the tournament, put the house on him. Put your life savings on. Yujiro's not winning this tournament, period. I would put any amount of money comfortably on that.
It's a good bet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our New Japan Cup coverage. Let's run over to the news real quick and cover these news items. So Mercedes Moné, her next two opponents are announced. So she'll be facing Azumi at Sakura Genesis on April 8th. And then Mayu Iwatani on Stardom's April 23rd show from Yokohama Arena.
Nice. So just enough time to get in a high-speed match with Azumi and then drop the title to Mayu Iwatani and leave the promotion. Which is probably what's happening.
Well, we'll see. I mean, if she loves it as much as she does, maybe a new deal will be
She
made.
seemed... did you guys watch the YouTube
documentary
vlog?
No, not yet.
No.
It's cool. It's really neat. And I'm not, I have never paid much mind to Mercedes Moné or Sasha Banks, but it feels very genuine. And it's definitely worth checking out. I know I think I tweeted a link if you need to go find it, but it was surprisingly genuine from someone who I don't think is necessarily presented that way all the time. So definitely worth checking out.
I'll check it out. This is not me coming from a personal standpoint. It's just from a business standpoint. She's only signed for a few dates. And I think once those dates are up, back to the negotiating table she goes. And are they going to keep paying her what they're paying her, whatever that may be, or could potentially going back to WWE be more alluring? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, even if we only get the 3 matches, those are 3 pretty cool matches.
It's better than the Mysterio run.
That was gonna be cool. Though.
It was gonna be.
Was gonna be cool.
Yeah, man.
Damn.
Another news: Yuya Uemura apparently suffered an injury during the last set of Impact tapings this past weekend. I don't know if it's a work or a shoot. When I read the report, it kind of seemed like it might have been part of the storyline, but
that sounds like a work. They just announced him versus Alex Coughlin for Bloodsport. That's not very far from now.
They announced that before he got hurt.
Oh, then disregard. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
My understanding was that it was not a work.
Okay. Not good.
That's actually from someone on the Impact side of things.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Jeremy Borash.
Yep, me and Borash.
Borash is in WWE.
I know. I just threw out the first name I could think of.
Scott D'Amore.
Thanks, Dixie.
Thanks, Jeff.
Double J.
But we'd have a question from OK890. After the injury, do you think New Japan will be bringing Uemura back?
I don't know.
I don't think it doesn't seem like the injury is like a long long-term kind of thing. I think he's probably going to just take some time off and he'll be back. Yeah. He'll probably stick it out with Impact, which seems to be officially where his excursion is happening.
Yeah.
So not LA.
I wish he'd come back to New Japan Strong quarterly for pay-per-views.
He can be back in
Strong on demand.
Months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aussie Open have had a couple AEW appearances this past week. They were in the tag Battle Royal on last week's Dynamite. They faced the Young Bucks on Rampage, and then this coming Wednesday they'll be at the tag Casino Royale to fill out the final spot in the 4-way tag title match for AEW Revolution coming up this Sunday on pay-per-view. There's also Ring of Honor tapings this past weekend. The first set of tapings under Tony Khan. So Zack Sabre Jr. was there. He defended the TV title against Blake Christian. Hot Sauce Tracy Williams and Rhett Titus faced Aussie Open. Josh's trainer Matt Sydal teamed up with Christopher Daniels to take on Aussie Open as well.
Open your third eye.
Wheeler Utah face off against Clark Connors, the Wild Rhino, for the ROH Pure Wrestling title. They have a question from OK 890. Do you think the LA Dojo guys will make their new home at ROH, or do they finally come to Japan?
Both, hopefully.
Yeah, I was gonna say yes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a either or. And then last note from the tapings, Utah put out a challenge to Katsuyori Shibata for a ROH Pure title match. So maybe the WrestleMania weekend pay-per-view will be Utah versus Shibata.
And Shibata, I was going to say Shibata signed a contract extension with New Japan. So
yeah. That's how cool he is. Like
signs a contract extension with New Japan and then picks up another wrestling match somewhere else.
It's just cool that like other champions are like, I want to defend my belt against you. I challenge you to challenge me for my belt.
Then last thing here, we had the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards come out this past weekend.
The bullshit awards. the niche, wrestling fan awards. This is not real. Fightful is the real. PWI is the real awards, Jeremy.
Well, talking about Observer here. New Japan got some awards here. So Will Ospreay won Most Outstanding Wrestler. The Pro Wrestling Match of the Year was Okada vs. Ospreay from August 18th. The Japanese MVP was Kazuchika Okada. The Europe MVP was Will Ospreay. Best Television Announcer, Kevin Kelly. Best Major Wrestling Show, AEW and New Japan present Forbidden Door. And the Best Wrestling Maneuver was Will Ospreay's Hidden Blade.
Nice. Well, let's jump into the questions real briefly, unless you don't think we have time.
I think we got time. Chris, are you still good?
Yeah, I think there's only a couple questions here.
Yeah. So, Solid Deuce says, how do you feel if...
What a name. Oh, my God.
Maybe we don't have time.
He says, how do you feel if BC primarily worked the U.S., Impact, ROH, Strong, etc., and away from Japan's main event scene? This give NJPW freedom to push Japanese mainstays, ELP, Ishimori, House of Torture in a new direction, and possibly promote ZSJ or ELP to Jay's old spot without breaking up Bullet Club. BC / House of Torture is the most fatiguing part of NJPW, and I personally just want their roles diminished.
I don't think that sounds likely. That's the only thing I will say. It sounds very unlikely that anything like that would ever actually happen.
Well, Solid Deuce. I don't think that's happening, and I don't mean the Solid Deuce.
Yeah, I think Bullet Club, as long as they're printing money and it's a mainstay in New Japan, I think they're going to just keep getting new leaders and keep it running. Next set of questions here from the Dark Soldier. This one's more of a statement. He says, hearing Josh's compliment, yo, is like watching how the Grinch stole Christmas. Young boy's heart grew 3 sizes of that podcast.
That's not true. I've got a long track record of changing my mind about talent when they produce. I used to hate Yoshihashi. Like the guy. I've also soured on people that I used to like when they don't produce. So, Yo had a really great match against Hiromu. Now, I will tell you this. T-shirt Yo on Fantastica Mania Tour has not really lit my world on fire.
Yeah, I missed the Fujin and Raijin.
Fujin Raijin, yeah, I was going to say.
There was no Namayanas this time.
Namahage or whatever.
Yeah, Namahage. For some reason, they replaced Namahage with El Desperado. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's like El Desperado's a draw or something.
They gave him his spot.
He also asked, he says, Jeremy, is your father-in-law a true fan of Keeping It Strong Style? Yes, this man listens to this show every week, all 3 hours.
Yeah, but who's he tuning in for? It's not you. This man tunes in for the young boy, okay?
Listen, I also tune in every week for all 3 hours, so we could be friends.
But you like both of us. Jeremy's father-in-law likes me more than he likes Jeremy. He told me.
Wow.
And he says, to quote Cody, is the Bullet Club fine given they have no leader right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seem to be okay. His last question, why hasn't Shima showed up in the past few months? He was doing great work as well as the Strong Hearts, and they just vanished.
That's a great question.
Time to leave the territory.
That's like going to be the name of Shima's memoirs by the end of his career because he's just bouncing around so much. I love him. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really. I mean, Glate, I guess, is his home.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I think he has partial ownership.
I know. Yeah, he's pretty involved there. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see him back again. No space in this 24-man New Japan Cup. If they went to 52 or whatever, they could have done it.
Could have squeezed him in, yeah.
And he's only jobbing to Okada. So if Okada's not in the tournament, he's probably not. He's probably going to win it.
Yeah, they're probably
that's why Shima's not around, is because they don't want him a chance for the title yet.
Yeah, they call him like, "You want to be New Japan Cup?" He's like, "Am I beating Okada?" No, I'm good.
I'm booked.
I got a Glade show. Sorry. Next set of questions from Dr.
They called him and they said, "We want you to come back and we want you to lose." Hello?
Dude, the number you have reached has been disconnected. Dr. Larry the Dark asks, which wrestler who worked the show do you think listens to E40? My money is definitely on King Switch. I think he's talking about Battle in the Valley.
What? What is E40?
I don't know.
Bro, I don't know what E40 is.
Chris, you're the music man.
This is out of my depth.
I will do a quick Google as you move along.
Then that's what he says. Obviously, New Japan chooses to keep ties.
Oh, it's an American rapper.
Oh.
Okay. I don't know E40. Never listened to his music.
Same here.
E40
do you think Jay White listens to rap?
Oh, he's like a old school rapper from like the early to mid 90s.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I could see it.
I'm not familiar with E40. He has a wine empire apparently.
Mm.
Yeah. Rich is listening, being like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, Rich is like, these idiots. She also asks, obviously New Japan chooses to keep ties with TNA and AEW, but how do you think that going forward with New Japan willing to use names like Mercedes, Okada, etc., do you think New Japan will be breaking through in the US?
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it's kind of something they've been trying to do for a long time, and they had some really sick momentum, and then 2020 happened, 2019, 2020 happened with AEW, and then the pandemic, so kind of building it from scratch again now.
Yeah, I think New Japan can easily kind of overtake Impact in the US, but it seems to have a good partnership. I think if New Japan ever got back to like an AEW level of competing for number 2, there might be some issues with that relationship, but I don't know if New Japan will ever get back to that.
I mean, I would argue New Japan's probably most likely past Impact in most metrics. The only thing they don't have the same level of television deal, and they're not pulling in the same numbers that Impact does better TV than them, but they also own the channel.
Yeah.
I mean, they essentially have the same television deal because they're on back to back, but
they're at essentially it's pretty much the same, except for like, they're doing reruns of shows that are already on. Like, it's not exactly the same.
Yeah. Speaking of Mercedes Moné and Kyrie's the the Axis match this week.
It's probably going to do pretty good numbers.
Yeah. And I think that's before it'll be up on World. I don't think anything will go up on World until next weekend.
Yeah. Def Triangle 720 asks, do you think New Japan should be more aggressive and lock down Aussie Open and West Coast Wrecking Crew and bring them to Japan?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that no one's signed them yet. It's kind of mind-boggling.
I also think that would show a lot of commitment to the tag division.
Yeah.
Which, I think they're trying to do that with Goto and Yoshihashi, but to like bring in some proper outside tag teams, like specifically as tag teams, it kind of harkens back to, GOD and stuff. So I think they need that type of team that's just going to be kind of the thread that the division goes through. And Aussie Open or West Coast Wrecking Crew could either be that.
Definitely. And we saw World Tag League how fun it was when they have so many different teams and options. So I think, the more teams that can sign, especially two talented teams like Aussie Open and West Coast Wrecking Crew, will definitely help in the long term. And last set of questions here from Hawaiian Punch BV. There's a AJPW seems to be running an All Japan versus Outsider storyline. Which New Japan wrestlers do you think will take part in this, except Nagata, of course? How would you feel if Coughlin and Kidd competing in their tag division? It'd give them more experience and they'd be in Japan.
I'm not too privy to what goes on in All Japan, and I don't watch their product like that. That's my dog. I don't watch their product, so I couldn't say, but I'm always open to New Japan talent working outside dates, especially with other domestic groups. So, we saw what happened with Nagata recently, and that's very exciting. And hopefully that more stuff happens. Oh, he's tired.
Telling you to wrap it up. But yeah, I think any way to utilize Coughlin and Kidd would be cool. I'd rather them be utilized in New Japan, but if you want to get some outside work competing in All Japan, that would be cool too. And then he says, when are we getting a Hechishero versus ZSJ match for the TV title?
They do have one official match from 2018 in PWG on the Smokey and the Bandito show. And for my money, I'm not the all being expert when it comes to lucha, but from what I've seen, Hechicero is the number one Yave guy in all of Lucha Libre and has been for quite a while, to the best of my estimation. So him and Zack Sabre Jr., I've heard that match is really fantastic, and I could only imagine how good that might be from a mat-based perspective.
Yeah. And then his last question, thoughts on Jake Paul taking his first L after fighting a legit boxer?
I'm pretty sure I've said many, many times on this show that if they put him in there with just one competent boxer, he would lose the fight. And that's what happened. And he pretty much lost every single round. I think most judges gave him like the third round because he landed a couple good big shots, but he got outstruck almost the whole night. And he didn't look like he belonged in the ring with the boxer.
Because he just focused on WWE now.
No, he's actually maybe because he's signed to PFL, which is an MMA fight league, and I don't know why he is signed there. He doesn't have, for what it's worth, Logan Paul could probably fight MMA. I've actually seen him train and roll with world ranked MMA fighters, and he looked like he belonged, believe it or not. Like he's that physically talented from an athletic, and it makes sense because he was I think he was all state or all national level wrestler when he was in high school. So he's very, very, very good. But Jake doesn't have that same background, or, he's got a big punch, but that's about it. He's not the same level of athlete as Logan Paul is. So I don't know I don't think he could do WWE, and I don't think he can do MMA.
Well, that's it for the questions. Recommended match of the week. Last week I recommended the Muto Naito match from Wrestle Kingdom 6.
This was very, very, very interesting to kind of go back and rewatch. And luckily, I like watching stuff with Japanese commentary, but they recently did the English commentary with Chris Charlton and Kevin Kelly for the Muto retrospective. So I gave that a whirl just to check it out. And it's always, they do a good job, but it's always a little different when they're calling the action so many years after the fact. It's not like they're pretending like they're actually there necessarily. But the match was so unique and interesting because Naito was still in his Stardust Genius phase. He was pretty early in his singles run coming out of No Limit. And this is only his second singles match in the Dome. The year prior, he had one of the worst Dome matches ever against a coked up Jeff Hardy. And that match is extremely infamous because Jeff Hardy said that they were going to go out there and have the greatest match in the history of Tokyo Dome history. It was not. So then they come out here the next year, and it's him versus Muto, Genius versus Genius, and it's literally the last singles match that Keji Muto ever has in a New Japan ring. And this match was not it. If you were a Tetsuya Naito fan watching this live, I could only imagine what your pain, suffering, and frustration had to be like, because he got so little in this match. I mean, they did some cool grappling in the beginning, but once Muto took over, like, he really just took over. And like, Naito didn't even get to like have strike exchanges with the guy. And this is the semi-main event of Wrestle Kingdom that year. It's a big, big spot. And it's the most important match of Naito's life up to that point. And all he can get is like drop kicks and like tackle spots. For the most part, Muto pretty much dominates him. And every single time Naito starts to like mount a comeback or an offense, he just gives him like a dragon screw or a shining wizard. And down the stretch, he hits him with like 4 or 5 shining wizards. And the one like consolation prize he gets is that he kicked out of them. But he gets there's no point where it looks like he's going to win. Like, he goes for a Stardust press and misses, and that's about it. He does get a few quick roll-ups, like he's Yo right now, like the way like when Yo's in trouble and he goes for a couple desperation, like, lucha libre like roll-ups. That's kind of what Naito is doing here. He never really had Muto in trouble on any level, and then Muto hits him with a moonsault, and it's like, I don't know, it's sub 15 minutes, I think, and it's literally 90% Muto just beating the shit out of Tetsuya Naito. And Muto's like, this is 11 years ago. He's 60 now, so he's like 49 years old at the time. And Naito's like this hot rising star for the company. He's like the future, and Muto just beat him and then left. It's kind of baffling. But the funny thing is, as terrible as all that was, they definitely did the same spots in the match that they did in the Tokyo Dome here, and kind of alluded to their past there. But yeah, this was a weird bit of business, and not a great way for Naito to get his Tokyo Dome career off to a hot start at all.
Yeah, definitely an interesting match to watch leading into the Muto retirement match.
I wouldn't recommend it as like a great match, but it has a lot of historical context. So plus, it's a semi-main event for Wrestle Kingdom. It's kind of required viewing. So if you haven't seen it, I would definitely say check it out, but it's weird, man.
Then the excursion match of the week was Yuji Nagata versus Kento Miyahara for the Triple Crown Championship. And this match was awesome. Yuji Nagata, 54 years old, doing his best every day. Absolutely, this match was so hard hitting, and this was just like this could be like a close like match of the year type of level matchup, especially for a guy like Yuji Nagata in his like mid 50s, going out here and just absolutely killing it. Really enjoyed the matchup and think people should go out of the way to see this matchup. And I'm interested to see just kind of the year that Yuji Nagata is going to have. And we have a couple questions here. That dude named Mendes, more thoughts on Nagata winning the Triple Crown. Any thoughts on outside companies having New Japan winning their titles? And Dom Hui 101, thoughts on Kento Miyahara. Do you think that he should look to get into a bigger stage?
I think Kento deserves a bigger stage, but I think he's potentially happy as being like the biggest star in all Japan. But time will tell.
Yeah, I don't want to weigh in on this too much because I haven't seen the match yet, but this seems to be a trend of some sorts for smaller companies. Like we saw it with Kojima and Noah this past summer. where to bring in some of these dads, bigger names who are proven draws, guys that have track records and can still go, but maybe can't be utilized to their fullest potential and extent in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but really could make a big difference business-wise for some of these smaller companies. And I think it's smart business, plus there's the historical aspect as well. You bring in a guy like Nagata, wins the big title, completes the Triple Crown, yada, yada, yada. And now there's a great narrative because he's an outsider. He's not even in their Champions Carnival this year. And, whoever wins that carnival is going to have to go up against him. He's not even involved. And it's a good storyline. So.
Yeah, I think it's New Japan's way of kind of helping out the Puro scene by sending some of these bigger, New Japan dad names out there to help those promotions kind of draw and kind of help keep those businesses afloat. And so, yeah, I think it's great for Nagata. Like I said, he can still go. Also, he's not, 30-year-old Yuji Nagata, but at 54-year-old, he's still out here killing it, having these great, hard-hitting match of the year contenders. And then Keita Miyahara, I think, yeah, he should be, like Chris was saying, on a bigger stage, but it's one of those things like, is he super loyal to All Japan? Does he want to be, the really big fish in the small pond? Or does he fear, going into that big ocean, does he fear being lost? But he's an incredible talent, and I think he would succeed on a bigger stage. So, Josh, what do you got for the recommended match of the week?
Yeah, so for the recommended match of the week, I know we don't do this very often, but I am going to give you an outside match from history that I think would be something that's good to check out. And we're going to go to the Wrestling and Romance promotion, otherwise known as WAR. The date is October 11th, 1996, and it is the match between the Great Muta versus Genchiro Tenryu. And it's a great match. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. I think it very likely is probably the best match in the history of the Great Muta's persona, stateside or Japanese. And it's really, really hardcore.
Nice. Looking forward to checking that out. Then for the excursion match of the week, going to go with the Young Bucks versus Aussie Open, which happened last Friday on AEW Rampage.
Oh, that's good because I've got a subscription to TBS.
Perfect. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for the show. Chris, thanks so much for joining us again for this marathon here. Go ahead and give the listeners your plugs and where they can find you online, anything you got coming up on the pike.
Yeah, always a pleasure to do the big Keeping It Strong Style 3-hour marathon. You can find me on Twitter at the Chris Samsa, and my New Japan Cup bracketology previews will be up at njpw1972.com this week. If you need a New Japan Cup bracket or you just want to see the bracket, you can get that at supporterprowrestling.com.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's going to wrap the show up, and you probably missed it. We're not doing a New Japan Cup contest this year.
We thought about it, but then we changed our minds, and that's our prerogative.
Yeah, it is what it is. But check out all Chris's resources on njpw1972.com, the bracket on supporterprowrestling.com, and fill out your own bracket. Just have fun with it.
Unless someone wants to do it for us. if someone wants to do the New Japan bracket contest for us, hit us up. We have many. You can reach us. There's lots of ways, and we will endorse it provided we trust you. So yeah, you kind of have to be someone we know.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna wrap it up. Next week we'll be back,
and we're not gonna pay you if you. This is fully volunteer based.
Next week we'll be back to review the first night of the New Japan Cup and the anniversary event. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow the network at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping a Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boy. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin, the AW Match Guide podcast, hosted by Sir Sam, and the Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny Kugler. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiba.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can find options that fit your budget, because giving you options is the right thing to do.
Oh yeah, like when I hold the door for someone. Sure, it may be weird if I don't time it right, and they're a little too far away, and now they're running. And we're both asking ourselves, is it worth it to run instead of just, letting them open their own door?
But still, it's the right thing to do. So get options based on your needs with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
At Kroger, we want our fresh produce to meet your expectations, which is why we're dedicated to doing up to a 27-point inspection on our fruits and veggies, checking for things like scarring. In fact, only the best produce like zesty oranges and crisp carrots reach our shelves. Because when it comes to fresh, our higher standards mean fresher produce. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.